Guys, welcome back to Monday Warfare, the Battles Within, and we are on episode 19 already. Can't believe it as we move into the month of May in 1996 here in WCW and the WWF. I'm your host, Ray Russell. Joining me, Mr. Steve Xstat. Steve, welcome back to Monday Warfare.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Happy to be back.
Absolutely. It's always fun to talk a little about 1996 and the Monday Night War, especially where we know where we are. Now we're in May, which means we're creeping up on the NWO and all that good stuff going on. Unfortunately, all of the fallout from the WWF as Hall and Nash go to WCW, we have to cover that here this week. Well, luckily for us, after this, the Kliq is kind of divided into two separate territories or two separate promotions, and they're not as powerful in the WWF moving forward.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I wanted to get right to the shows, but the news, the chaos, Steve, that they caused right before they left, has to be mentioned. It just has to be covered. And so that's just, I have to do it. It's pathetic. It's sad. It's disgusting. And we'll get to it as the show goes on.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Absolutely. We're going to do.
Let's talk about it.
Yes. And we're going to do 2 more episodes of Nitro and 2 more episodes of Raw this week. And this will be the last week we do that. And I'll explain why at the end of the show. But for now, we better jump into things as we head into the middle of May in 1996. WCW news. WCW announced on May 8th that it was expanding its Monday Nitro show to 2 hours, Steve, from 8 p.m. Eastern Time, of course, till 10 o'clock every night. And it begins May 27th following the NBA playoffs. The expansion of the show had been somewhat in the works for a while, says DeMeltz. This is good. But it wasn't expected to take place until the beginning of the fall television season in late August or early September. That's not the fall television season, Dave, but I can't wait to get to the next point. The decision to do so immediately, the first week of after TNT commitments to the NBA playoffs are over what DeMeltz says is no doubt came as a response to the May 6th television ratings where Nitro in a 7 p.m. time slot did a 1.9 rating while Raw did a 4.1. It's second highest ever, I believe, at the 9 p.m. time slot. So that's what DeMeltz says. This was originally planned to debut the 2 hours in the fall, and they got scared and panicked and created this, made a jump. They jumped ahead June, July, 4 months, Steve, because they can just do that, apparently. Well, guess what? I went on over to Eric Bischoff's podcast, and if Bischoff is anything, he's pretty honest, brutally honest sometimes. And he calls bullshit. Might I add, one thing I do love about some of those guys, Conrad's in it to make friends. He doesn't want to rock the boat, Conrad Thompson, with Dave Meltzer. But the guys that he talks to, Bruce Pritchard, Eric Bischoff, those guys have no love lost for Dave Meltzer. And they make it very well known on their programs. And Conrad read this paragraph to Eric Bischoff on the show, and Eric Bischoff went off. He called absolute bullshit. He said it was never discussed to come out in the fall. That was Meltzer just hypothesizing, making shit up. Like you've said it before, Steve, not too long ago, and I don't remember if it was on this show or the Grenade show, but you basically said, like, you can't tell where the facts end and Meltzer's opinions begin in his writing. He's such a good job, does a good job at that, and it's no more evident than right here where he claims that this was scheduled for the fall, but they bumped it up 4 months because they got scared over a Monday Night Raw rating at 9 when they were on at 7 p.m.
I'm not buying that. It makes no sense. You're out of your normal time slot. You have basketball, so your show's all over the place as it is.
Right.
And we see this with, like right now with SmackDown moving to Fox Sports 1 because of the World Series, AEW having to move to, TBS or Saturday on the same channel. Like it kills your rating. We're creatures of habit. Wrestling fans are creatures of habit. On Mondays at 9 o'clock, wrestling was on. That's it. You could tell us for a week straight that wrestling's on at 7 on Monday, and by the time Monday gets there, we're most likely going to forget unless we're diehards.
It's happened to me before. I believe one of these 7 o'clock shows. I don't. Did I mention it last week?
I think you mentioned it last week. Yeah.
Yeah. Where I missed
the show.
Yeah, I missed the parking lot brawl between Regal and Finley because I forgot the show was on at 7 o'clock, and I kicked myself in the ass that I missed the live episode. Of course, they had the replay later on that night, but kicked myself in the ass. I turned it on at 9. Where the hell's Nitro? Oh, shit. That's right. It came on at 7. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it happens to all of us. And I was a hardcore wrestling fan, Steve. I was diehard.
Yeah. we both were. I mean, it was like religion, man. Like, you went to school and you talked about what was going to happen on Monday Night Raw. And then on Tuesday, you talked about what happened on Raw and Nitro. And, like, wrestling was so hot. Like, before that, I never even talked about wrestling outside of my one friend I grew up with. Like, some other friends, like wrestling, but they weren't into it like we was. But by the time 96 and the NWO hits, man, it was everybody. Everybody was talking about wrestling. So you couldn't go a Monday or Tuesday without talking about wrestling. But that doesn't make any sense. And I think Dave just likes to think he's smarter than everybody in the room. So he thinks, okay, well, this makes sense making this huge adjustment in the fall because everything's out of the window and then you can really kill them in ratings and everything. So it makes the most sense moving it to fall. I'm so happy like people like Bischoff don't give a damn about what Meltzer thinks or feels. These are the guys that were there. They know. And so I would trust their word over a journalist. And I'm using air quotes for that.
So DeMeltz does have more to say about this. And then this is mostly just opinion, but it is true. So I will give him props for that much, but it's common sense true. But we're going to touch that anyway. DeMeltz says, as a best case scenario for WCW, the hour lead-in, starting at 8 instead of 9, will allow them to hard sell a couple of main event matches. No doubt one of which will start nearly every week at about 8:53, basically beating out Raw's 8:57 start time. So it would be in progress when Raw starts and the other held off for the final quarter hour of the second hour of the show. Well, duh, Dave, that makes absolutely perfect sense. I don't know if they actually do that every week, but it makes perfect sense. Obviously, yeah, you want a main match in your ring when Raw starts, and you want a main match in your ring to go up against Raw's main event. So common sense stuff there by Dave. And Dave also says, in a worst case scenario, is that WCW booking committee isn't equipped to put on a 2-hour live show each week without diluting the product. The company has been struggling of late to put on quality television. Mondays have been hit and miss. Many believe the periods where it built up to a slight edge on Monday over WWF was the result of weekly hot-shotting, and that the current ratings are the hot-shotting coming home to roost. WCW made a lot of long-term sacrifices by always featuring the same wrestlers and not building anyone new in its prime vehicle, whereas WWF rarely gave away pay-per-view quality matches in response and bit the bullet while it basically stood even in a time slot it used to own. So WWF really hasn't been affected very much yet on the ratings, other than every once in a while Nitro is beating them in the ratings. But they're still seeing pretty good here. The competition almost created a higher rating for both companies, as we saw as the month started there or in late 95 between the two. DeMeltz says expanding Nitro will affect everything, which is also true. TV ratings, house shows, and pay-per-view buys. But it's hard to predict in what ways. So it could be positive. It could be negative. The challenge for WCW to make the 2-hour format work is it will have to be able to get over a lot more wrestlers as a 2-hour show rather than ride just the coattails of Hulk Hogan, Flair, Savage, Sting, and Luger. They'll have to create coherent storylines and get over mainstream the second rung of players such as Steve Regal. We just recently saw Finlay in the company, Eddy Guerrero, Chris Benoit, etc. And also be able to get over the Japanese and Mexican talent as people who are important rather than just very active moving cannon fodder for the mid-level wrestlers to beat. All of that's true. Again, all opinion, but it's all common sense opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's not stating anything other than the obvious. It's so weird to talk about a 2-hour TV show being overexposure. Like now it's like, holy shit. We got how much hours of TV each week? 8 hours on WWE. If you only watch Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. AEW has 3 hours of TV. If you watch Dark, you probably have more than that. So, I mean, there's a lot of wrestling on TV. So getting overexposure was a huge issue back in the day, but clearly nobody cares about that now. But no, it makes sense. And it's something that we can always maybe keep track of and come back to. Like maybe I don't know if you care enough about Meltzer's opinion here to rehash it, 6 months from now. Well, Dave said they're going to have to do this and this. Did they do it? Did they accomplish that? I mean, it'd be nice to kind of see, but we all know where this heads and what happens. So
yeah,
I guess when your main event scene is so hot, whatever happens underneath doesn't even really matter.
At least not for a while.
Not for a while, but all that, I think that's a deterrent. But we have plenty of time to talk about that going forward.
Well, the melt continues on because he's got a lot of things to say this week. He says the Blood Runs Cold vignettes apparently have nothing to do with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash as he originally theorized. DeMeltz claimed just a couple of issues of The Observer ago that he was pretty sure Blood Runs Cold was Hall and Nash, but he's come to the conclusion it won't be Hall and Nash anymore. Good job, Dave Meltzer. But it will be a team of 3 ninja heroes to be brought in, one of which is expected to be Brian Clark, Adam Bomb. Of course, we know Wrath, Brian Clark, does come in way down the line as a heel in this Blood Runs Cold type angle. I don't think that he was ever a plan at this point, though. I think this is just Dave guessing. Dave does claim for sure he knows one member of these 3 ninjas in Blood Runs Cold. He says he knows for sure the main guy is going to be Chris Champion, who was one of the members of the New Breed. You remember that went back in time and Dusty Rhodes was president, and yeah, in NWA back in the 80s, and later on did the Yoshi Kwan gimmick. Yeah, Chris Champion going to be one of the ninjas. Actually wouldn't be a bad idea. He was pretty mobile in the ring. But there, again, I just listened to a podcast. Eric Bischoff says he didn't create Blood Runs Cold and then find guys to fill the shoes. He created the Glacier gimmick with Ray Lloyd in mind. He had known him, he liked him, and he wanted to put him in that position for whatever reason. And, obviously it was just done at the wrong time. Might have worked a couple years earlier than this, but not so much here in 96. But it's going to be a while before we see old Glacier pop up. But Dave knows for sure that it's Chris Champion coming in. So that's the melt. Of course. DDP now has a benefactor. He's getting back in the ring. Nobody knows who this benefactor is, and he doesn't last very long either, Steve, but he did purchase DDP an attorney, and that attorney found a loophole in the contract, which allows DDP to return to the ring. And he also gets himself a limo, and he's all of a sudden not poor. I don't know who this benefactor was supposed to be. We never do find out because
was it Bischoff?
It might have been his next door neighbor at the time.
His next door neighbor.
Yeah, that's right. But DDP is back in business, and boy, did they flip a bunch of plans for him all at once here coming up. DeMeltz also drops the ball yet again.
No way.
He says that the Renegade was released from the company, even though he'll be around next month, Steve. So the Renegade gone from WCW, I guess, for a month. Anyway, thank you, Meltzer. More discussion. This time it's of the Nature Boy Ric Flair and Randy Savage feud going on right now. DeMeltz says even though Flair is 47 and the natural criticism is that he's too old to be put in the top position and his match quality isn't what it was in his prime, the fact is that it's Randy Savage and Ric Flair feud on top, which has led to the revitalization of house show business. And based on this past weekend, the feud shows no signs at all of being on a downward slide. From a personality standpoint and an ability to get over a hot angle, there is still nobody close to these two in WCW. Now that Meltzer gets right, really, outside of Randy Savage specifically and Ric Flair because of who he is and the personality that he exudes, there aren't very many other people here to get anything over right now.
Yeah, with Hogan gone and there's really nobody else because Hogan's buried everybody on his way out the door.
Everybody.
It leaves you these two established stars that really no matter what happens to them, they're still over. It's Ric Flair, it's Macho Man. People don't care. Like they're clearly past that point where they didn't get on anybody's nerves or just totally shit all over their goodwill. Like Hogan had.
Yeah.
Like Hogan's a lightning rod. Flair and Macho Man aren't. Like people they know shit's going to be good. They're intense as hell. They know how to sell a story. It's not hokey, cartoony garbage. It's real life to a degree. They're different and they know how to sell an angle, and that's exactly what they do here. It's some good stuff. I mean, the promos are getting a little redundant with Ric Flair, and Miss Elizabeth looks extremely uncomfortable in like 99% of them. But for the most part, Macho Man really carries this. I think Macho Man really does an excellent job of carrying this.
So we followed it on former episodes of Monday Warfare, so I figured we might as well see this all the way through to the final comments Eric Bischoff makes here in regards to Mark Mero. Yes, I know he's been with the WWF now for a few months, but these conversations are still going on. People are still questioning Eric Bischoff about Mark Mero leaving WCW for WWF. There's been some things said back and forth. Here's the final words from Eric Bischoff on Mark Mero leaving WCW for WWF. He says, I don't know that I would or I wouldn't rehire Mark. There's 3 mistakes that were made the day we parted company at the airport. One is that Johnny, be bad, confronted me 5 minutes before we were supposed to board a flight to do TV. Bad timing. Second mistake is that he gave me an ultimatum. When someone looks me in the eyes and says, do this for me, which in his case was put something in writing saying, you're going to pay me no matter what happens if I get hurt or I can't wrestle. When someone says this to me, they give me no option. I don't deal well with a gun to my head. Well, that's a bit extreme, Eric. The third mistake was on my part because I overreacted to that. I overreacted because Johnny was a guy that everybody who has worked here during the time I've worked here has wanted to fire. They wanted to get rid of him because they didn't believe in him. I gave Johnny opportunities. I protected Johnny. We all think Johnny's a great wrestler now, but a year ago, you guys were filleting him like a fish. He wouldn't have had that opportunity to become a great wrestler if I hadn't given it to him. He had a contract, he shook hands, he agreed on a deal, and then because he didn't like the tone of my voice when we had an issue over the NASCAR problem, he decided to call Vince McMahon and take a better offer. That to me is not integrity. He may have his reasons for doing it, and he may believe he's right. But if I shake hands with somebody and say this is our deal, I'll cut off my arm before I go back on my word. Johnny said he'd like to leave on good terms, and I don't think agreeing on a deal, giving me an ultimatum, and telling me 5 minutes before we get on an airplane is necessarily the greatest way to part company. And I looked him in the eye and I said, no, you're not leaving on good terms, Johnny. And I sincerely hope you know what you're doing, because you're not coming back. I meant it when I said it. But in reality, as much as I'm still a little disturbed by what happened, I've had time to get over it personally. So Bischoff pretty honest there. He's like, yeah, I'm a douche, but this is how I feel, and I'm kind of over it now, though. So he admits maybe he jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard like Bischoff to be a liar. He may have forgotten things or forgets things that people want answers on, but he just doesn't remember or use that as an excuse. I don't know, but I've never seen him lie about something like all the time.
Right.
You know the people that do. So it's their way, and that's the only way. Whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So I would take Bischoff at his word here that he probably did say you're not coming back, but at the end of the day, it's business, and I think that's what he's covering himself on that last line of, I'm over it personally. If it came down to it and business was business, I would think about it. Like he's mad. He didn't like the way it ended. I'm sure Mark didn't like the way it ended either, but that's just the heat of the moment, and that's the battle within, really. Like back then, all you had to do was call Vince, hey, you need something? Are you interested? And then it was on. Like no guaranteed contracts, really. There was no 90-day non-compete clauses, which I know that comes up with the kid coming down the road a little bit, but as far as news, but for the most part, it was the Wild Wild West. And if you was free, all you had to do was call the other guy, and they would probably bring you on just to take a shot at the other company.
Well, you got to remember, Vince wanted Mark too. I mean, he offered him a bigger contract. He saw more money in Mark than he did in Mick Foley. And that's what Mick Foley always complained, like that upset him because Johnny B. Bad was making more money than him.
Well, Mick Foley just seems like whatever. I don't even know what to say, man, because it's like you was brought in as a favor, Mick Foley. I'm sorry that's the case, and I'm sorry you've had to kill yourself just to get yourself over and to the point where you're a legend. I mean, I would look at Mark Mero and say, okay, there's more money to be made here than with some out of shape big dude who's playing some crazy ass gimmick. Like, I get it. I see it. I see where Vince is coming from.
Well, especially with Vince. I mean, Mero had the look.
With Vince. Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying everybody's going to look at Mark. Like, Paul Heyman's not going to look at Mark Mero and say, you're going to make more money than Mick Foley for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But, I mean, for Vince McMahon's product and what he wants to push, yeah, Mark Merrill's getting picked 99 out of 100 times.
Right, absolutely.
Back then. Not now, but clearly. Back then, oh yeah, all day.
So we'll
probably saw him as like the next Mr. Perfect or somebody in that vein who could be an IC title champion for quite a long time.
Yeah,
and then after a certain amount of time, he could have moved up to the main event scene if done properly. Like he could at least had a title match here and there. I don't think it would have been terrible. But
yeah, you know what's interesting too, and I don't want to stay too long on this because we got so much Nitro and Raw to talk about, was when I was listening to This Era recently from Eric Bischoff, he kind of commented on Mark Mero and him leaving and things like that, and not so much, I'm not getting back into what I just read, but he talked about how he saw Mark. Bischoff wasn't a believer in Johnny B. Bad. He didn't really like the character. The way he describes it in his mind and his memory, I don't want to say it wasn't over, but it wasn't over with Bischoff. He didn't see it going anywhere. He said if he had it to do over again, he would love to have kept Mark and made him like an aggressive heel or like an aggressive baby face is the way he described it. Completely shedded the Johnny B. Bad character, which I think would have killed him like it did in the WWF. I think Johnny B. Bad, the character was part of what made him so over there once he really got his wrestling together there in the second half of 95.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to harp on it too long, but the problem with Mark Mero is a character like John B. Bad is very limited as far as you only can go so high with that, I think. It's just such an outlandish gimmick. But if you strip that away, he's not going to go anywhere because the gimmick made him. So it's like, what do? Do you want to be stuck in TV US title picture? Or how can you take that Johnny B. Bad character, strip a little bit of it away, but keep some of it? Yeah. To make it to where it's believable in the main event. And I think an aggressive, angry heel version where you slowly strip away those things, but build up other things at the same time, I think that could have worked. But it would have took a lot of work. And if somebody doesn't buy into you, they're not going to put the effort in to make that happen. Yeah. So, yep.
Well said, sir. And we'll get going with WCW Monday Nitro for May 13th. It's the final 60-minute edition of Monday Nitro. They're in Nashville, Tennessee, Municipal Auditorium. In front of 5,700 people, only 2,900 paid though, Steve. So about half full of actual paying customers here. And once again, Nitro on at 7 p.m. Eastern because of the NBA playoffs. It's Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and I believe for the last time, Steve McMichael on the announce team, along with his rock star Pepe here. Pepe's in Nashville, so he's kind of dressed up like Roy Orbison or something along those lines. Lex Luger has missed his last two WCW title opportunities. I knew you were going to laugh at this. It was good.
I love it.
So this time Lex was determined he wasn't going to miss his championship opportunity tonight against the Giant in the main event of Nitro. No, sir. He slept in front of the building all night long. Luger missed his two opportunities, so he camped out last night in Nashville, complete with a reclining chair, a blanket and pillow, a flashlight, reading material. He even had reading material. See, way before cell phones and looking at your cell phones, people. He had reading, but he had some magazines there. He had a nice cooler, some water bottles, some fruit, mosquito repellent, and yes, even a fly swatter. He can even feel the mosquitoes on his blanket as he starts swatting them on the blanket as if they were bothering him. Pretty detailed list of things I thought here. It's like somebody sat down and said, what all do you need? Like somebody really thought this out. What all do you need if you're really going to camp out somewhere? I mean, you had the food, you had the water, you had the chair, the pillows, the fly swatter. It was everything you ever needed.
Oh, it's so good. I have no clue why he missed the first two matches. I don't think they've ever told
explained,
us or ever explained it. Luger said the last one was he just missed his flight, but this was hilarious. I don't know if they meant to do this or what the case was.
You know what killed me was it was comedy gold. It was comedy gold, but the announcers sold it. The announcers sold it as serious. Boy, he really wants that title shot. He stayed here. It's like, did you watch the video footage, or are you just repeating what you know you think that they showed on here? Because if you watch the video footage, I don't know.
He's just swatting at air. It's comedic gold, I would agree, but I just think there's no way they did this on purpose. There's no way they said, you know what, we're going to have you miss 2 title matches, and then we're going to show you camping out. Like, that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to get this over.
Somebody came up with it. It was whoever wrote this little scene here. It was pretty clever, I thought.
It was excellent. I loved it.
So we kick things off in the ring. It's the Steiner brothers taking on the Public Enemy. Public Enemy get the jobber entrance. They're already in the ring, and I'm okay with that. Scott starts off with a big press slam on Rocco Rock. Actually, he presses him onto Johnny Grunge. Then Rick Steiner runs in with a double Steiner line and clears the ring. Suplexes galore by the Steiners on Public Enemy, and it leads to a 4-way melee on the floor. Public Enemy take over briefly. Rocco goes up top, but Rick falls into the ropes, and Rock's supposed to crotch himself, but he takes like 5 seconds. Very delayed fall by Rocco Rock as he crotches himself on the top rope there. Scott comes in and he hits a nice tilt-a-whirl slam on Rocco, but he kind of turns to the side and it almost turns into like a Dino Bravo's gorilla would call it side suplex. So it was like a tilt-a-whirl side suplex. I thought that was really nice, even if Scott didn't mean to do it. Scotty goes up, tries a superplex on Rock, but Grunge from behind picks Scott up on his shoulders with a fall away, and then we get an assisted drive by as Grunge helps Rocco climb the ropes in the middle of the ropes. Not in the corner, in the middle of the ropes. Rocco Rock hits a somersault senton and tries it again in the corner, the real drive by off the top rope in the corner, but Scotty moves this time in the hot tag to Rick as he mauls both Public Enemy. Rock tries a somersault plancha to the floor, but Rick moves and Rock lands on Grunge yet again. Back inside, Scotty nails Rocco Rock with the Frankensteiner, and the Steiners pick up the win 6 minutes and 54 seconds. I wrote, besides the typical Steiners moves, Public Enemy were slow and plodding. Not a very good match.
No, it was pretty rough. They're sloppy. Yeah.
Just like the key word.
And they didn't even want to really sell either. I don't know if you saw it, but when Rock was outside, Rick was laying in some punches, and he just stands there. He didn't move his head. He didn't change his facials. He didn't do anything. He just stood there and waited for Rick to grab him. So I don't know if these dudes just checked out because they're not going anywhere fast in WCW. Their time is terrible here.
Steve,
really.
I just think they're bad. I just think they're this bad.
They're just collecting a check, and it just goes to show you how great Paul Heyman is. He protected these dudes and made them look like $1 million.
Well, yeah, and it goes to show you how great Bill Apter was, too, because I really seen very little of Public Enemy. I only had some ECW tapes that I bought through an Apter mag, so the only thing that I had pumping Public Enemy to me was reading the Apter mags. I'm like, these guys are awesome. I'd never even seen them, Steve, and I thought they were awesome. And I was still blind to it here. I didn't remember them being this terrible when I was watching this at that time, in this time period. I just thought they were as equal as any other team. I didn't think they were as good as the Steiners, but they didn't, but now that I go back, I don't know if they've had one good match yet in the company, wrestling wise.
No. Yeah, I don't recall. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's sad, but it almost feels like they got a check and they hated the fact that they got a check. Not the fact that they got the check, but the fact that they had to leave ECW to get it, because they're perfect for ECW. They're perfect for that environment. They got the freedom to express themselves the way they want to be expressed. And I think that's where they dropped the ball, is that they gave these guys no time to talk. They didn't have any time to establish their character, their gimmick, or anything at all. They just assume everybody knows who they are. And their gimmick is basically going through tables. And so without that character development, Public Enemy's nothing, because that's their bread and butter is character development and telling stories.
Wow, man, you're really on a roll here. You're really on a roll here this week, man. You're really hitting the nail on the head on a lot of these things. Yeah, they just don't give them time to ever. Nobody knows what Public Enemy is if you're just a casual or a WWF, WCW type fan. You have no idea what they are, where they came from, what their deal is, other than they break a table every now and then. And sometimes nobody's even on it. But yeah, it's just they're running into each other here. The Steiners are hitting all their spots. They're not selling for anything. They're not even doing it in a really dickish way. It's just Public Enemy are in the wrong place so many times in this match. So sloppy. You use the right word, sloppy.
It's amazing to me too. Like Bischoff had issues with Sabu. Public Enemy didn't work out. 911 was there for like a piss break
as a job guy.
So as a job guy, it's amazing that he would even want to go back and even hire anyone else from ECW. He's never gotten a return on his investment, but we all know that changes. But, I mean, it's just, why would you go back to that well? Hire the guy that's getting them over, not the guys that are getting over.
Yeah, for sure here. Public Enemy just aren't, and I remember this era so badly because I had wanted them. Why won't they give Public Enemy the titles? Why won't they give Public Enemy the Man, they're screwing Public Enemy over. Now I go back and I watch this and I go, oh, that's why they didn't give Public Enemy.
No wonder.
Yeah. I think they do win it for like a freaking week or two or something way down the line here. In Cleveland of all places, if I remember correctly. So you just mentioned Eric Bischoff hiring people. Eric Bischoff announces that WCW Monday Nitro is going to 2 hours on May 27th. Should be interesting. Should be fun. We'll talk about that at the end of this episode of Monday Warfare. We go back to the ring. It's Chris Benoit taking on Squire David Taylor with Jeeves in his corner, the old Wildcat Willie. Taylor replaces the Belfast Bruiser as Regal's partner at Slamboree, because that's fair, Steve. Rather than sell the match, the announcers sell Hulk Hogan being friends with Shaquille O'Neal and the Magic vs. Hawks game coming up later tonight. Not only do they shill the actual game, they have to mention that Hulk Hogan's friends with Shaq, who was on the Magic way back when.
What else they got to do? They don't care about these people.
So we got Benoit and Taylor in the ring having a nice little quick but snug match. Heenan, meanwhile, puts over Finlay, which I thought was really cool because we know at this point Finlay's gone for the rest of the year. He's went back and he's working, I believe, for Otto Wanz or someone over in Germany. Then we learned a lot of things in this match. We learned about the Hawks and Magic game. We learned about Finlay and how great Bobby Heenan thinks he is, even though he's not here anymore. And then we learned that Bobby Walker, hard work Bobby Walker, who sued WCW for probably this very reason right here. We learned that he's been removed from the Slamboree pay-per-view because he was hurt. And in his place will be DDP. Remember, he just got rehired by the WCW. DDP will be replacing Bobby Walker in the Lethal Lottery match. So that's how DDP squeaks in just 6 days before the pay-per-view. Interesting how that happens. And then Bobby Walker out. And you wonder why that lawsuit took place.
Right.
But I should mention, there was a match going on, Steve, between Chris Benoit and Dave Taylor, by the way.
Oh, really?
They go out to the floor where Dave Taylor hammers on Benoit, and then he does a nice flip back over the top rope into the ring, a nice heel move, and then a little bit of a peace sign there, a la Steve Regal. And that is how you get heat. That's a Jacques Rougeau move, that old flip back into the ring thing. It means something there. They were on and this is important, so I'm bringing this up for a reason. Bear with me. They were on the outside of the ring. He had to get back in the ring. So what does he do? He just shows off and he flips back in the ring. Keep that in mind when we get to Raw, Steve, okay? As this match goes on. What's that?
I said, all right, I'll remember that.
This match goes on. It's Chris Benoit going up for a moonsault. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, okay. He wasn't really going up for a moonsault. He had to set Dave Taylor up to sneak up behind him, put Benoit on his shoulders into a fall-away. And then again, a real fall-away slam, picks him up Scott Hall style, nails the fall-away slam. I love Dave Taylor's float over with his fall-away slam. Gets a 2 count here. Taylor misses a reverse cross-body block off the middle rope, and Benoit with the dragon suplex picks up the win, 4 minutes and 14 seconds. Too short to be anything, but Dave Taylor here in this 4-minute match showed me more than he did than they allowed him to show us for most of his run here in WCW.
Yeah, I got a little sloppy at times. I mean, there was an ugly-ass looking slingshot towards the beginning. He goes up stiff as a board and then falls into the top turnbuckle. Mm-hmm. You made this match sound way better than what I thought it was. I mean, Dave Taylor's nice. I enjoy watching him work. He's similar to Regal. The chops were nice. I love the European uppercut. Those are my favorite. I like it better than just like a normal punch or a normal chop because it looks a little different. And if you connect with it good enough, like it looks really good. So it could be more effective than those other moves. But it wasn't bad. I mean, it's just it doesn't seem like Dave Taylor gets a lot of work. So there's a little ring rust. It feels like he's just hit and miss on when he works. So he's probably not getting enough action to even be consistently good. But it's definitely there how good he is and can be.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably all over those Disney tapings, probably against job guys. So I don't know. I don't know how much work he's really getting.
I don't know how effective that's going to do, but
everybody do yourselves a favor. Go on YouTube, look up just a couple of Dave Taylor matches from over in England, man. The guy he didn't get the credit he deserved here in the States. Regal got to shine for years. We know the talent that Regal is. Dave Taylor, I'll always hold Regal above pretty much anybody from that era over in the UK. But Dave Taylor was pretty damn good. So as the show goes on, we learn that the Macho Man is not permitted in the building. But he has something in common with Steve McMichael. Mongo has been getting upset with Ric Flair lately. Flair trying to hit on Mongo's then wife, Deborah McMichael, who's been sitting in the crowd for some odd reason several weeks in a row. Not here this week, but Mongo not happy with the Nature Boy. He's going to go talk to the Macho Man. So we go outside after commercial. Mean Gene standing by with Doug Dillinger and security as they hold the Macho Man Randy Savage back. And a train whistle blows in the background, not planned, and Mean Gene has to ad-lib, "Oh, the train's in town." Oh. So I thought that was funny, though. Mongo comes out. He wants to have a word with Macho Man. Mongo says, "I have a plan for Flair, baby doll, darling," and all that horse shit. Meanwhile, Macho Man's not even in the screen when Steve McMichael's saying any of this. So he never actually even speaks with Randy Savage. He may be speaking at Randy Savage. "Don't you worry, I got a plan, Randy." But he doesn't actually have a conversation. So he left commentary to go say this outside in the parking lot in front of Randy Savage, although they never actually have a conversation. So I wrote, what the fuck? What was the point of this? So Mongo turns around and just goes back inside. That was his conversation with Randy Savage. Savage, we learn, has been fined I don't care about the money, which is a lie. We've heard stories. I've heard stories of Macho Man and the money. Mean Gene believes he's lost his mind, and I believe so too. Macho Man getting so hyped up with this storyline that he's incoherent, or at least at the very least, he's not putting proper sentences together, and some of it just doesn't make any. It's funny, but it just, some of it doesn't make any sense. Savage, we've learned what, a week, 2-3 weeks ago now, the Macho Man will have to team with the man that he is trying to get in the building right now and kill, murder. Ric Flair, they got to team up at Slamboree. I don't know how. What is the luck of that happening? So Savage says, and I quote, Savage says this, I don't mind dragging a dead guy to the ring to get to Battle Bowl, yeah. So Macho Man going to murder Ric Flair, possibly during the Lethal Lottery match, and then drag his dead body to the ring for Battle Bowl. So at the end of this segment, Savage tries to rush in. He can't get in. And means he says, you need to seek behavioral help. Ha! Call the hotline for behavioral help numbers. Well, he didn't say that part, but yeah.
Savage said he's seen a psychiatrist, and she said he has OCD. He's one cool dude.
Yeah.
It's like he's going nuts, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm one cool dude. And
OCD, like, one cool dude. Well, he had to get the line in, whether it made sense or not.
Yeah. I mean, Savage, like Gene says he's lost it, and Savage asks him what's he lost, and he's like, your mind. And Savage says he'll talk to Gene in another lifetime, but not in this one.
Yeah, that made that was one of
maybe they're having that conversation. Maybe they're having that conversation now. Who knows? But
sound bites. I'm not really answering what you're saying. Just got some sound bites coming out right there.
I'm pretty sure he's having fun with this because it's he's all over the place, but I believe it. Like, that's how good a Macho Man was playing this crazy ass off the hinge character. Because we've seen it in WWF in bits and pieces, like especially after WrestleMania 8.
Right.
But
which also involved Ric Flair.
This is full on. Like,
yeah,
he's completely gone.
Our world is about to change. Blood runs cold. Coming to WCW. DeMelt says Chris Champion right around the corner. DeMelt would be wrong. I can't wait to find out who this Blood Runs Cold guy is or what it is.
WCW's wrong too.
Yeah, I can't wait till they start posting.
WCW right now.
Well, I can't wait till they start posting the debut date on here, and then they have to resend it and go back to coming soon to WCW because the NWO takes off and they're like, we gotta push this shit back a couple more months. Poor Glacier.
I was just gonna ask that. What was the cause for the delay? But man, if it was a hot gimmick and you thought it was going to take off, then no matter what else is going on in that company, you could have debuted it. But
everything was second fiddle to that NWO shit, man. Let's be real.
Yes, I guess. But you still got. Never mind. I was just gonna say you got like an hour and a half more, but shit, they're on every segment. I was watching one of the pay-per-views a while ago, and every match is that NWO music. It's great music. Everybody loves it, but every match, my wife is like, "What in the hell is this?" Like, every match, this music just comes on. Turn it off. I'm tired of hearing this music. So I was like, can't help it. I think
it is annoying where they play it out one segment, and then it comes back to the next segment. It's starting to play again because the next guy's coming out. Oh yeah,
the winner.
It can get annoying,
and then you hear him walking out, and then you hear the next guy coming in, and it's like, Jesus, get some new music. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah, we go on with more action. It's Nature Boy Ric Flair with Woman and Leather Liz at ringside taking on VK Wall Street, another random heel versus heel match. They do these from time to time here. Flair points at Mongo on his way to the ring, teasing him and taunting him. And he also passes his VIP dinner table that he's been having at ringside here lately. I found it kind of amusing, but that goes more with the Ric Flair cartoon character. Me and you have talked about off this show before. Some wrestling back and forth by the two men, but Flair powders to dance with Woman near his VIP table on the floor during the match. Back inside, VK Wall Street works the leg of Ric Flair into commercial break. Back from break, Flair does the flip up into the corner and the Flair flop as well to boot. So Flair taking his bumps even for VK Wall Street. Vincent Kennedy Wall Street. Get it right, pal. And of course, the slam off the top rope onto Ric Flair as well, and not one but two backdrops. So Flair, talk about having the same match. Oh my God, everything Jesus. Here. Talk about exposing the business. VK lands the stock market crash, aka the Samoan drop. It was the original write-off in WWF for Tatanka came and stole the move, and he had to start doing that clothesline. So 2 count.
Clothesline's better.
Yeah. Well, it looks nice, yeah. 2 count here. VK Wall Street after the Samoan drop. Rotunda then with a slingshot sunset flip for a 2 count. A backslide for 2 again. A clothesline sends Flair to the floor. And Wall Street follows him outside. Misses a running high knee into the steel post. Boom. Uh-oh. What happened there, Steve? Wall Street hurt his leg. And Ric Flair sees it. He sends his leg again into the corner post. And then back inside the ring. It's the figure 4. And with woman's added help and leverage, Ric Flair gets the submission win in 9 minutes. Okay for TV, I thought.
Remember that time on the memory grenade when these guys like the massive rating on main event, so they thought it was so good they had to run it back again
and again.
That's not this. That's not this.
No, that's not this.
That's not this at all.
Neither guy is. 1989.
This is just go through the motions,
yeah.
And let's get to the promos. And in Wall Street's case, let's get to the shower to get all this sweat off of me. I mean,
he was sweating before he came out. Let's be real. It's freaking Mike Rotunda.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, he's sweating all the time, so he's sweating get out of bed. But
that's right.
I think Flair's is ready to get to the promo. But I will say at the end of the match, I think it's Bischoff or Heenan, one of them. It may have even been Bischoff. He does an excellent job of putting Flair over, like how smart he is. He's like, he put that move on right there so he could leverage the ladies just to get that extra help. Doesn't sound like a lot. It makes sense, but just the commentator paying attention and putting it over, like how dastardly of a heel he is and how smart he is as a heel and a wrestler was good. But this was just go through the motions. You got 9 minutes to kill. Let's go knock it out and be done.
Yeah, Flair is on another level, and I don't know if I mean that in a good way here. And this week's episode of Nitro or next week's episode of Nitro, and some of the comments he's making, he doesn't really care what he's saying. Clearly, during these promos here, he beats Wall Street, rolls out of the ring, walks up the aisle just a little bit there, where his VIP table is. For those who don't know what I'm referring to, there were several weeks there where Rick started having a table, one of those 6 foot wide tables, the same one's Public Enemy break, the same one we're going to see here used here later in this show. And it's got a tablecloth over it and some candles and some champagne and some food on it. He likes to sit there with his ladies and just kind of watch the action and enjoy himself at his VIP table. Well, here he meets Mean Gene over at his VIP table. He talks trash on the Macho Man, rubs the money Elizabeth took from Savage in his face. He talks trash on Steve McMichael. And I believe they even kind of mentioned Kevin Green here because the cat was already let out of the bag. And when he starts...
Was it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't on Nitro, but they acknowledged that I guess Kevin Green kind of already went out and, let the cat out of the bag on the radio or whatever. Because he was so excited, these what are you going to do with these non-wrestler guys, huh?
Right.
So
I didn't know that. I don't recall them acknowledging it. Did
Flair and
I think they just said, go get one of your buddies, go get one of your all-pro buddies or something like that.
Oh, maybe it was. No, I believe it was before. Yeah, it was. They definitely do. You can go back and check it. I remember it was before Slamboree because I remember thinking he doesn't even appear yet. One of the announcers, I think it was Bischoff too, even says like, or maybe it's Flair during this promo. Somebody says about the Kevin Green thing and how he can't even keep his mouth shut. Not in that way, but basically that it's already, been said.
Right.
So they're kind of acknowledging it without acknowledging it, even though they say his name. Yeah, absolutely. But basically, Flair talks trash on Savage. He talks trash on Mongo and his football buddies here. And Flair looks to his ladies and calls them his wide receivers. As we head into a commercial break, and when we come back, Eric Bischoff apologizes for some of Ric Flair's comments. I wonder which ones.
Well, where do you want to start? He started the promo off saying Nashville hasn't had much for him since he made Dolly Parton ride Smash Mountain one night, or Splash Mountain, whatever he called
Space Mountain,
whatever. And then, he's kissing Liz's arms up and down.
Yeah.
And she just has this look on her face like, get the fuck off of me. Like, she is not into this at all.
No, she's collecting those paychecks, though, isn't she?
Yeah, she likes collecting the checks, and I think she likes the idea of being a heel, but she doesn't want to be touched. it's very awkward. You could clearly tell that she's not in it.
And Flair could give I can't speak for Liz. I can agree with you. That's her face. That's what her face says to me. Yeah. But I don't know Liz, so I don't know if that's just deer in headlights, like she is a lot of the times here in WCW.
I will say, like, it's how she's looked like her whole career.
Yeah.
Like, just very, like, nervous and uncomfortable. But I don't know, man. Like, it's like, a woman knows what she's doing. Flair doesn't mess with her because he doesn't want to mess with Sullivan at this point. So I get it. But Liz is there, like, as a free woman single, I guess. I don't know. And he's kissing her up and down, and she's just like, this is disgusting. But no, he said he's Joe Namath, and he said he threw touchdown pass after touchdown pass. Mm-hmm. And he says, Mongo, look at his wide receivers, and it's right. Liz and Woman. Yeah. And I'm surprised it took this long to get this dude canceled or heat. I mean, just go look at his promos. It's not far from the truth. This is Ric Flair. This is how he's always been.
He's having fun here, that's for sure.
And it gets even worse next week. It gets way worse next week.
Oh, yeah, because, oh, my God.
He got 35 minutes of talking.
The time has come. The time has come, and camping outside has paid off. Lex Luger has made it. He has arrived for his WCW title match. It's the main event of Nitro. The Giant defending the title against Lex Luger. Jimmy Hart at ringside. Now, remember, Jimmy's been with Lex in the past, but he also manages WCW champion, the Giant. So Jimmy Hart out there at ringside. Lex finally makes it to the title shot. No introductions. We come back from commercial. These two guys are ready to go. Lex bounces off the Giant when he tries to tackle him down. He tries to slam Giant, but gets tossed to the floor for his troubles. Back inside, Lex Luger nails clotheslines that do absolutely nothing. He jumps off the middle rope, but the Giant catches him and power slams him into the turnbuckle. Luger makes the comeback, even nails a jumping forearm. You know, the steel plate forearm from WWF. Giant no-sells it, and immediately Eric Bischoff mentions, that's the forearm that knocked out Yokozuna and put him out for 10 minutes. So he couldn't wait to get that. He was just waiting for that, wasn't he, Steve?
Oh, yeah. He was exposing the business like that's not set up. That's the first thing you think of when you see a flying forearm, Bischoff, is that knocked out a guy from the other company. Like, you knew that was coming.
Lex tumbles.
Probably told Luger to get that spot in.
I believe he did. I mean, he jumped on that. He couldn't wait for that here.
It's immediate.
Luger spills to the floor. The Giant follows him out, presses him back in the ring, but the Giant never gets back inside. He gets up on the apron, and Luger won't let him back in. Luger takes several shots, maybe a dozen shots, and sends the Giant, after a big flying forearm this time, sends the Giant off the apron, though he does land on his feet, to his credit. And we end up with a brawl outside between Luger and the Giant. And they wander over to Ric Flair's VIP table, where the Giant clears off the table, literally clears it, Steve. It kind of killed it for me. I didn't notice this way back when, but first he's like, oh, what should I move? Oh. So he moves the candles. Makes sense. Then he looks again. He's like, all right, I'll move the plates. And then he moves the plates. Then he looks again, and he's like, all right. And then he just pulls the whole tablecloth off, Steve. All right, whatever. Safety first, I suppose, by the Paul White here. Then there's food crumbs, literally just some fucking food crumbs left on the table, and he even swats those away before he finally, choke slams Lex Luger through the table. It kind of took away from me this time. I had to laugh. I'm like, oh my God, he brushed off crumbs of food before he would put Luger through the table. So he's very thorough. I got to give him that much. Very safe is the Giant here. And Flair goes absolutely ape shit nuts. He's dancing around in a circle there right in front of this. Now remember, Ric Flair is the guy the Giant beat just, a week or two ago or whatever it was to win the WCW title. But instead of being upset that the Giant's right in front of him, the guy that took the belt from him is right in front of him, he's just mad they destroyed his VIP table. Which goes back to the entire point of Ric Flair becoming more of a cartoon character than an actual wrestler at this point.
Yeah, it's not very entertaining to me either. I mean, some of the stuff he's saying is funny, but like, he was always a bit off kilter and nuts like this back in the day, but his primary focus was that WCW title or the NWA title. Nothing else mattered. He didn't care about nothing else. Yeah, he wanted money, but money came with being the champion. Or he wanted women, but women came with being the champion. And that was the end-all, be-all. Now it's just like he doesn't give a shit about nothing. I'm just going to go out here, have a good time, and collect a check. And it's sad, but I think that's the end of Ric Flair this is the end of it. This is what you get the rest of the way. So, very unfortunate.
So, getting back away from Ric Flair and going back to this match, this WCW title match, the Giant puts Luger through the table right in front of referee Nick Patrick. Now, if you go online or you go into the old Observer, DeMeltz claims this was a double countout. I never saw Nick make a count. He followed them outside. He stood there until Luger was chokeslammed through the table. A bell eventually sounds. Nobody's ever announced as a winner or loser. So I wrote, was this a double countout? Was this a disqualification? A no contest? You decide and pick your own battle there, but match goes only 4 minutes and 4 seconds. So Luger waited 3 times it took him to get this title up, slept there all night. And then the match goes 4 minutes. That was the payoff here this week. Jimmy Hart jumps on the Giant's back to try to save Luger, but the Giant even shoves his own manager, Jimmy Hart, away. Sting rushes out to check on his buddy Lex. Mean Gene, being Scheme Gene, comes over. He wants to have an interview with Lex Luger and Sting while Luger's laying there half dead. And Sting said, "Not now, Gene, get out of here." So even Sting frustrated with Mean Gene being old Scheme Gene here. And then we cut to the announcers who sell it like Lex could have been severely injured. They're really selling this chokeslam through the table. It seems like a slight pivot to a full face turn for Lex Luger this week rather than that tweener. Is he a heel? Is he a face? Having the monster heel put you through a table, that's a pretty big baby face turn.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also thought this angle made more sense after Bischoff and them sold it afterwards, as this is something that Sting's going to have on his mind when he gets to the Giant at Slamboree, that gets payback for his buddy getting put through a table. So I didn't even realize that. I didn't even think of that when it happened. But after the announcers mentioned it, I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. The angle was good. I liked it. But also knowing that they did it to push their title match at Slamboree, the pay-per-view, was a nice added feature that I really pick up on until they told me. So good job by them.
Here's something else I didn't pick up on until 25 years later. Smart booking here by not letting Public Enemy do any table breaking earlier, like not even having them get put through the table. It allows the announcers to sell Lex's bump properly as if it's serious rather than just a undercard silly spot done by Public Enemy here. So I wondered during that match, where was the table? Why didn't it break? Not because I wanted it, but because they've done it in every single match on TV since they've been here. And then all of a sudden, not this week, and it seemed odd, and it made all the sense in the world once I saw the end of the show. And I'm going to go back 25 years to me back in 1996 and tell you that Lex Luger never took anything like this ever to this point, Steve. Going through a table? Off the top of my head, I don't remember Lex Luger going through a table. So it was something different for Lex Luger, which made it more believable for me. Even though I'm sitting there watching wrestling and I know it's not real, I'm still like, wow, that's I could see him selling that as something more important than some of these other guys who you're accustomed to seeing go through a table here and there, if that makes any sense to you. So when Lex went through it, it was just like I'd never seen a table break before, almost in my mind, because it was like a different meaning to me, I guess. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. It's effective. Table spots are so overdone and overplayed. There's been millions of them across the wrestling landscape for the last 20, 30 years. But I still remember Bret Hart at Survivor Series. It's one that sticks out because it was one of the first times that I've ever seen it in the WWF, was somebody going through a table like that. So when it happens and it's effective and it's like the first time, it just means more. So Luger going through the table, like I remember this angle. I remember the Giant doing this to him, and I was like, holy crap, he got put through a table. That's crazy. I got more on that as our favorite segment comes up, but yeah, it was very well done all around.
So segment of the night, was it Public Enemy getting Steinerized? Was it Ric Flair and VK Wall Street in the rematch 7 years later from 1989? Or was it Lex and his fly swatter? You tell me, what was your segment of the night?
The fly swatter was tremendous. But no, Luger getting dropped by the chokeslam. My point was, like, this wasn't done very often to where it looked intentional, like where you just picked the dude up and threw him through a table. I know Public Enemy did it, but they would lay the guy on there, then put themselves through it more than actually dropping a guy through the table. Or Sabu would jump on you and just kind of break the table slowly. This dude got picked up and dumped through the table on purpose. Like, there's intent there. And I thought it was just effective because you didn't see it like that very often. Yeah, tables broke, but like I said, I never seen anybody get power bombed through a table yet. Nobody's been choke slammed. Nobody's done anything through a table like that before. So seeing it was like, holy shit, that's big time right there. And it's surprising that Luger would be okay to take it because Lord knows he doesn't want to do anything to damage himself. But
right. Maybe that's why the crumbs were wiped off. He told Giant, I don't want anything on that table when you put me through it. And Giant just took it literally. Oh, he said nothing. So, and off goes the chip crumbs or the fruit or the cheese cubes or whatever the hell that was.
Yeah, and it also, like, to bring up Survivor Series again, that felt like an accident. I know it was a spot, but Brett was kind of just on the apron and got bumped, and he just happened to go through the table. Like, it didn't feel like it was... Obviously, now I knew it was intentional. As a kid, I didn't think of it that way. As, Diesel didn't mean to do that. There's no way, but that was awesome. This just felt intentional and something they wanted to do, so it was very well done.
Yeah.
Job well done.
And I'll give him more credit, too, because it meant a lot to me when it happened here, too. And it is a lot to be that it's Lex Luger, that it's a main eventer who does never take bumps like this, took a bump like this. So it just meant more to me mentally, especially since I had already, kind of been, it's already been watered down a little bit to me at this point. I'd already been buying ECW tapes. I think I had ECW television at this point for about 3 months. So I saw tables break every freaking week for about 3 months going into this spot here, right? And I was still like, holy shit, Lex Luger went through a table. He's dead. So it's funny how you think about different things for different people. Yeah,
it matters. Like if this was Johnny Grunge, nobody would care because he does it every week. But Luger never does anything. If you think about it,
yeah.
I don't remember him taking any more.
Probably his biggest bump ever. Yeah, I can go with that.
This dude's like, I'm doing back bumps all day. I'm not doing nothing else. Like, this is it. You're not even hitting me with a chair very often. So
every once in a while, I cheat on these segment of the nights. Every once in a while, I cheat on them, and I don't really necessarily pick an actual segment. I pick a thing or whatever. Meltzer said earlier when I was reading that Nitros have been hit or miss. It was very, very missed this week as far as the actual in-ring action went, and I really couldn't pick anything that I really cared for in the ring. So I'm just going to give like a VIP this week sort of thing for my segment of the night, and that's just Lex Luger, the VIP between the comedy at the beginning with the fly swatter and everything, and then the taking the bump at the end. So good trooper there, Lex Luger this week. I don't know how many more weeks he's going to be a good trooper here before it just falls off the rails forever. But for right now, he's okay with me. All right, it's time we move over to WWF news. And in the stupid Meltz files, remember, Ryback, stupid. On the Raw show, they had a woman in silhouette last week claiming to have been the ex-wife of an ex-WWF wrestler, claiming that she had an affair with Shawn Michaels. And it was played up throughout the show. Here's where Dave gets stupid, Steve. The angle seems to be that now that Michaels has become a big star, people are coming out of the woodwork to get him. It's overall a clever angle, although the woman in silhouette's acting was atrocious. And if they push too hard, here it comes. If they push too hard how great Shawn is in bed, a lot of guys will start resenting him. Is that not the most fucking ridiculous sentence you've seen? I mean, fucking seriously. Dave, come on, man.
What do you even say to this? How do you even discuss this?
This isn't even news. It was so ludicrous, I copied and put it in my notes anyway.
It's a terrible angle. It was a terrible angle in 96. It was even worse now. And you're really telling me that if a dude gets pushed as being tremendous in the sack, that other guys are going to get salty? Do you think Flash Funk's mad that Shawn's good in bed? Like, really? I mean, come on. I bring that up for a reason. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go Google Too Cold Scorpio and you'll figure it out. But
I think Dave meant more like fans, like the male fans will turn against Shawn. Like that really, like that's something I give a flying fuck about.
Like, I don't really give a shit who this dude was smashing on the side. Like, I don't care. Just entertain me in the ring. Like, I don't know how you are, or I don't think you're this way. I'm pretty sure we're very similar in this matter. I don't know if we've ever discussed this. I don't care what these people do outside of wrestling. Like, whatever.
I don't give a shit what they do either, except for, and that's a good segue, Steve, except for when they do shit like this, and I still don't really care. It's just sad and pathetic and has to be mentioned. Recently, after WrestleMania, as they often do, the WWF went on a European tour. And lots of things went on when you pack 24 wrestlers and keep them together for a 17-day tour. As you can imagine, Steve, specifically, Diesel and Razor Ramon, who are leaving for WCW, were flagrantly breaking every company rule they could in full view of everyone. No! There was tremendous heat on Michaels and Triple H in particular. Apparently, there were guys who actually wanted to deck Michaels, go figure, but had to be talked out of it because with Michaels' position, it would cost them their jobs. Sunny left the tour early because she was being ribbed to death, including someone taking a dump in her food, and at one point, apparently, Chris Candido, who didn't even leave with her, was also being teased and harassed to death by the big boys who acted like school children. Sunny was coming back from the European tour a few days early. It was a company decision and not a decision of her own. They were going to send 2 employees back a few days early to deliver some tapes, likely the upcoming Bulldog and Michaels angle from the beach, and it was supposed to be a ref and a member of the ring crew. At the last minute, Lisa Wolf of Titan Human Resources switched it from the ref to Sunny, apparently because Wolf had already heard the problems in Europe and wanted Sunny out of the situation because WWF is incredibly over-careful about subjects like sexual harassment. DeMeltz also implies that there's a situation between Sunny and another wrestler, Shawn, having an affair, causing more ribbing on poor Chris Candido over in Europe.
There's lots to unpack there. You want to go ahead and finish it up with the last bit, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Sure, just another quick couple lines here. Supposedly, Bret Hart, who finished up his run here with the company in this at this point in time after WrestleMania 12, did the European tour. He was fed up with what happened on the tour, and it made him feel even more strongly than he did before about leaving the company, even though the consensus still is that he'll probably be coming back here by the fall. This kind of re-encouraged him to go find something else to do. Maybe take some time away for the WWF.
Yeah, I can't say I blame him. I think the biggest issue that I have with it is that I can understand Razor being stupid and a child because he missed out on a Mania payday. But Diesel got a Mania payday, and then he got a main event at an In Your House against his boy for the title. Why are you partaking in these stupid-ass, childish things? I mean, I could just see it like, where's a guy like a John Nord or just somebody who does not give a shit, like a goon, to just beat the shit out of this guy and just take the heat for everybody. You know what? I'm done with this. I don't care. I don't care if I ever get employed by this company again. This is not how a company should be ran. This is not how people should be acting. And I'm just going to take the heat, and I'll take it. That's fine with me.
Yeah, you know the story of the Harris twins, Ron and Don Harris, when they were the Blue Twins, when they put their notice in. They're the ones that quit the WWF, and I can't really blame them based on the way they were used, based on their size. But for those who don't know, they knew it was their last night in the company or one of their last nights in the company, and they didn't really give a shit. And they had enough of Shawn Michaels, and this goes back, in the fall of 95. They wait until they get him alone, just them two and Shawn in a locker room, just those 3 guys. And one watches the door, because it doesn't take 2 of them to intimidate Shawn. Just one. That's all it takes. One watches the door while the other one picks him up, like you see in the movies, and holds him up against the wall and basically threatens to not kill him, but make him wish he was dead, perhaps. Everybody just got so sick and fed up of their shit. And I could see these two, Hall and Nash, knowing they're leaving, you can't do anything to me, doing whatever the fuck they want and acting like fucking teenagers.
I would have just sent them home. Go home, sit at home, ride your contract out, and just get the hell out of my life. See you later.
Yeah, I think they just
and that doesn't seem to happen. And I feel I don't know if there's a dude in this business who unknowingly got so much shit thrown his way as Chris Candido just because of the person he's with.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but positive things about Candido, how great of a guy and nice he was, and just an overall good dude. And he had to deal with this shit like his entire career because of who he was dating or who his high school sweetheart was.
He chose, and let's just call it like it was back then, a beautiful woman who just happened to be not the greatest human being in the world.
And to be honest, when he chose her or was with her, she probably was a good person and was a decent person to be around. I don't know. Jim Cornette's talked highly of her when she was in Smoky Mountain.
Right.
And like how much she loved the business and how smart she is to the business and things like that. But when you get around trash and see what people get away with and see how things are. It can either negatively or positively impact you. You can look at it and say, I don't want to be that person and be better, or you're just going to fall into the trap. And we all know what happened to Sonny. I just feel terrible for Candido, and then just the way he died is just sad as hell. It's terrible. Like, somebody shouldn't have to go through that. You're just ribbing a dude because he's smashing Sonny. Like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And it's childish, and I wish. There's some guys on this roster that can beat the shit out of all four of them. Let's be real. Somebody could have done it. And where's Undertaker at in this? I don't know if he's on the tour. I'm not blaming him, but he seems to be the enforcer, the judge of this locker room. Where the hell is he at? Why isn't he stepped in and put this dude in his place? So I don't know. But
we know it never happens. I mean, Shawn was untouchable by this point. So
Bret was right. I'm gonna quote CM Punk. Bret Hart was right. He was right 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know about what, but everything.
I guess we'll move on to lighter note here. Lots of new talents coming. I didn't say they were good, Steve. I just said lots of new talents coming into the WWE here all at once here in 1996. Debuting in the ring this weekend on the house shows were the Gangstas in Paradise. Dave says, I wonder where they came up with that name. They are the Samoans dressed up to look like Public Enemy. Now, that's not exactly true. We've seen what they dress like. It's a take off of Public Enemy, I guess you could argue, but they do not look like Public Enemy. One of which
Public Enemy wears jerseys and shorts. These dudes are wearing gangster suits like they're slinging rock on the streets.
Right, exactly. Dave doesn't know anything about slinging rock on the street. Dave doesn't know Public Enemy from Samoan Gangstas. Come on. Of course, the Samoans these Samoans actually end up being Samu, the former head shrinker, and the brother of Roman Reigns, son of Sika, Matthew Anoa'i, also known as Rosie later on in the WWF. They're called, apparently he's called Night Train here. I never heard him referenced by name, so this could be Dave just making shit up. Don't quote me on this. This is a Dave thing. But he claims Rosie was named Night Train and Samu was going by Sammy Slick, even though he was Sammy the Silk in ECW. They put over the Smoking Guns all weekend, so that might explain why their time here in the WWF was short-lived. That's the same Samoans we've referenced in the past who tried to get Fatu to come back to the hood. Also hired May 10th. Wow, what a slew of names here. Tom Brandy, he'll be Salvatore Sincere. Tracy Smothers, Freddie Joe Floyd. Alex Porto, the Pug. Dirty White Boy, Tony Anthony, going to be TL Hopper. That's Toilet Lid Hopper, for those who don't know. And Bill Irwin coming in as the Goon. Wow, what a slew of talent hires by the WWF here. And that's not all. No. Jim the Anvil Neidhart will also be returning as a favor to Sue Hart, only he won't be the Anvil. Are you kidding me? This guy, legendary member of the Hart Foundation and the New Foundation, and he teamed up with Owen, and again, it's heels, and he's coming back this time as who, Steve?
Who?
No, I'm asking you, who? Who's he coming back as?
Who?
Oh, you're telling me. Got you. Yeah, that's right. Under a mask. A yellow mask. As who?
You can tell by his chest, man. You can tell by his chest who the hell it is.
I told you on the Grenade Show in 1993 that Vince McMahon loved the old first base joke. And here we go. Who? Yes. That's the entire reason.
He didn't love it when Bartlett did it, but he loved it. I will say, you know what the most amazing part out of all that news is? The fact that the Goon actually has a WWE action figure coming out.
Wow.
You figured that one out.
Wow.
Bill Irwin's about to get some royalties.
Well, hey, man, he stayed good. I guess he stayed good with the right people.
No, the Mattel Marks just wanted to make a Goon figure really bad, so they made it happen. That's really all it is.
I guess so.
Those guys love it.
They should do a 2-pack. The Goon and Mr. Perfect as the perfect goaltender. It'd be a nice little 2-pack there.
That would be nice. Zodiac too.
Props to anybody who got any of those references.
If they got them, they're watching the Monday the Memory Grenade.
Oh, if they're watching the Memory Grenade, then something's wrong somewhere. They might be listening to
listening to the Grenade if they're getting those references.
You know what I was watching, Steve? WWF Monday Night Raw, May 13th, taped back on April 29th, Sioux City, Iowa. I bet he doesn't do TV there anymore. Municipal Auditorium, 4,000 people. Wow. $3,200 paid. So nobody's selling out, but they did okay here. A little more than 75% paid on this particular building. We open things up with a backstage promo. Ahmed Johnson. So don't even ask me what he says. We learn that he's the first ever Kuwaiti Cup tournament winner. Beats Triple H in the finals there. Sunny tries to pick Ahmed up in the back when we were just talking about this. She rubs all over the chest of Ahmed Johnson, but Ahmed tells Sunny his mama always said, take the trash out. Don't bring it in. Damn. That's foreshadowing Sunny's future life, I must say, but I was like, Ahmed got her good there.
I said, boy, was he right.
So
I hope she turns her life around. She still has time. That's all you hope for.
She has time, but I mean, you go to jail 46 times and you then you start posting, hey, sorry guys, I can't post this week on OnlyFans because the guy I do the videos with beat the shit out of me. And then the next thing you know, she's in the hospital for 10 days for an undisclosed reason. I don't know why. Oh my God.
I think she said she needed her gallbladder out.
Yeah, I believe that.
So.
Yeah, she's had her gallbladder out 7 times now, probably.
Man, all you can do is hope. All you can do is hope that somebody can turn their life around.
Oh, I hope. I see a repeat pattern here.
There is a pattern. Absolutely. It's unfortunate. Talk about one of the hottest ladies of all time right here.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just sad. It
is. So the reason we're even getting this promo, the reason Sonny's even trying to talk to Ahmed is because Ahmed's getting ready to take on, as Vince McMahon claims, he's getting ready to take on Skip of the Body Donnas, but it's actually Zip who starts the match off. Skip eventually takes over, replaces Zip in the match. Ahmed, though, backdrops Skip to the floor. Zip tries to come back in, take back over again. Doesn't work. Skip sneaks up behind, but runs right into a spine buster. Pearl River plunge. Just that simple. 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Ahmed disposes of both Body Donnas.
Crazy. These are your tag team champions. You're just jobbing them out to Ahmed.
Yeah, in 3 minutes.
Tells you how they feel. Yeah. Tells you how they feel about their tag division. But Ahmed's weird, man. He hasn't been around. He's just been hit and miss. Like, the last thing I remember him doing feels like Survivor Series. I know he had the stuff with Jarrett, but
well, you mean
he comes and goes.
He's working these pay-per-views and these 6-mans and tag matches. He's kind of working into that Cornette feud without actually feuding with anybody there.
It's just weird. Like, he comes in and slams Yoko, and you feel like, okay, he's going to ascend his way to the top rather quickly. And then the Kliq, I'm sure, probably got involved.
Well, I think it was more all of the injuries, and then them actually looking at him and going, okay, maybe he's not ready. Let's slow it down a little bit. I think the plans were still there to push him to the moon. I just think they realized probably not as fast as we had hoped. And I think Ahmed, who was really hard to have a conversation with, by the way, and I don't mean just because of the way he talks. I mean, he's set in his ways. But even he very recently admitted that, like, yeah, maybe I got, they pushed me a little too much too soon. I was still green. So he openly admitted he was green to the level of the WWF during this period. So, I mean, I think it's a hodgepodge of reasons why Ahmed's he's floating around there. They're protecting him still. He's beating the tag team champions in 3 minutes. So he's still there. Oh, it's that time. It's that time. It's
what you've been waiting for.
Yes. Cue the music, the Warrior music. Dun, 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 dun. Warrior Man here. Yes, it's the Ultimate Warrior selling his Ultimate Warrior Academy. And, oh my God, this ruined his character for me forever. It's the Ultimate Warrior in a commercial for his own Warrior Academy. And he's not dressed like the Warrior, Steve. No, he's dressed like an everyday man with a baseball cap and a ponytail, sunglasses and no paint, and talking to us like a normal human being, trying to sell us on his product to make some money. And he starts the promo off by saying, Warrior Man here. So he's no longer the Ultimate Warriors. Warrior Man here. Warrior Man here. Like, it fucking killed him forever. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I remember this very vividly when this aired. Warrior Man here.
I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is not what I expected for his return. I remember this.
It's clearly what he had in mind.
I ain't gonna lie, man. Like, I'll save some of this stuff for when we do the Mania watch along. WrestleMania 12 is one of the first shows that I was like super, super excited for, like, an actual match. A lot of times it was just, oh, this is WrestleMania, I gotta watch. I didn't really care about a match. I wasn't invested in anything. But I was really invested in Brett and Shawn. Like, I really liked the story leading into it. I thought it was cool. is Bret Hart, my guy. So I was like really excited to see a 60-minute match because I'd never seen one before. So that was all new. But then they said that the Ultimate Warrior's coming back, and man, I was super excited because that was my guy. He still is my guy. He's always gonna be my guy. But this shit, like watching it now, as a kid, I didn't care. It was Ultimate Warrior on my TV. I didn't really give a damn. But seeing it now, it's like this dude is cartoon 1989 WWF stuck in 96, and he hasn't changed at all, other than Warrior Man here and
Warrior Man here
just shilling his product.
Warrior Man here.
It's I'm shocked Vince McMahon got in bed with this dude again for what this is. Now, if it was just wrestling, that's one thing. I can get it. But you're really, knowing all the issues that you've had with this guy, you're really pushing a university, a comic book, and whatever else he comes up with. Like, wow, that's
DESTRUCITY. Yes, Vince McMahon even uses the word DESTRUCITY next week.
That's next level stupidity.
I'm buying in, pal. Like, I'm buying into the Warrior Man.
Come on, man.
Warrior Man, get the fuck out of here. Oh my God. So
well, really, like I will say the one thing though, and it's coming up like later on down the road, but when he comes out to confront, I think Lawler, he may have already done it. I don't know, but he had that all black face paint, nothing else on it, just black. The Warrior logo, but black only. It's like he didn't even bother or didn't even care to prepare himself to be on TV as the Ultimate Warrior. It's like he left that commercial of Warrior Man, and then he quickly put on black and came out.
Yeah.
Like that's what it feels like. He just wasn't invested like he was before. You can clearly tell he had ulterior motives, and he was just going through the motions and did not want to be here. As far as wrestling goes,
ulterior motives, definitely. It was just here to sell his comic book, come up with this academy nonsense, and carny ways to make money outside of actually having to wrestle. Is basically what we got going on here. And who knows? He probably planned on ditching Vince once he got all this other stuff off the ground and going. But
probably. But hey, man, isn't that what everybody would want anyway? Is Warrior making money without actually wrestling? Because if you read the sheets and everything else and everyone else, he's a terrible wrestler and everything else. But I'm not getting into that. But I mean, that's what people would want, right? Make money without wrestling.
I'll agree with that. So we'll go on with the show. It's Vader in the ring with Jim Cornette in his corner taking on Duke the Dumpster Droese. Vader works over Droese early in the corner, but the Dumpster comes back with a nice clothesline, drops Vader. Very believable, too. And then Droese launches himself with a crossbody into Vader. Both guys topple over the top rope to the floor, and we go into commercial back from break. Vader has control again, mauls over Duke the Dumpster. Droese fights back out of a chinlock and hits a running drop kick that sends Vader down. Droese then misses a top rope dive, eats the Vader bomb. Vader picks up the win. 7 minutes. It took a while, but I think Duke Droese got comfortable and he got pretty decent here near the end. This stuff with Triple H and, I mean, flashes of good stuff here in this match. This wasn't a good match, but for what it was, It was okay. But he had good size. He was more believable here in the last few months with the company. It's too bad he's pretty much out the door here in the next couple of months, but they were done with him by this point. They weren't pushing him, that's for sure. And I'm not saying that he should have been beat Vader here either by any means. But they did put him in this situation, so obviously no plans for the Dumpster.
Yeah, I don't know why Vader gets 7 minutes with this guy. And you can clearly see, too, that Vader is getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. He's losing shape, and it's like, I felt like no wonder they kind of changed their mind on him and change plans. I could see, you bring this dude in and you promise him a title match, and then all of a sudden he's getting injured. He's getting bigger and bigger. He's not delivering like you thought he would as far as matches. It's just not there. So it's not what you paid for. So, yeah, plans change, and it makes sense on why they did with Vader. This isn't 91, 92 Vader.
Definitely not. Not even 93, 94 Vader.
You get in the Vader that got fed up with jobbing to Hogan at the end. That's who you paid for, and that's what you got.
I think Paul Orndorff might have stomped the talent out of him. I don't know. We'll continue on with continue on with the show. Vince McMahon in the ring interviewing The Undertaker and Paul Bearer, complete with the golden casket at ringside, meant for Goldust, of course. Vince asks how they'll deal with the bizarre one. The Undertaker's response, bizarre. You're asking us about bizarre? I found that comical, like The Undertaker's calling himself bizarre.
I did too.
So Goldust and Marlena then interrupt with large, and I'm just quoting the fans, Steve, Large faggot chants throughout the entire arena here in Sioux City, Iowa. Shame on them. Goldust think
got no comment. I'm not touching these things.
Goldust
this whole segment, man.
Then quotes Batman 1989 when he asks The Undertaker if he's ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. Goldie then asks Taker if he knows what rigor mortis is. I think he was hinting towards a, certain muscle in the body. He tells The Undertaker rigor mortis is stiffness of the muscles. I said, oh, jeez. Taker, having none of this, grabs Goldust, but Mankind attacks from behind, mandible claw. And down goes The Undertaker once again, takes The Undertaker out. He's out cold, it would appear, paralyzed from that mandible claw. Vince says, what a paralyzing move. Then he must have got pissed off at himself because he realized that's not a move, Steve, that's a hold. And you know how Vince is about these isms. So he corrects himself. He goes, paralyzing hold. So Vince McMahon, you're fired. Post-match shenanigans. The Undertaker's out, right? He's down from the mandible claw. Goldust stands over top of The Undertaker, removes his golden robe, then gets down on his hands and knees on top of The Undertaker, straddles him, Steve, and clasps his hands with The Undertaker's. I wrote, Jesus, he's basically humping him here. And if you thought that was bad, do you know what you didn't see, Steve? Do you know what was edited out of this episode of Monday Night Raw? There was more.
Edited out where? Like on Peacock or...
No. I edited out of the original version of Raw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this never aired. This never made air. Anywhere, anytime. No. While Goldust was down on his hands and knees on top of The Undertaker, they cut to the crowd really quickly and they cut back. What you didn't see because of the editing was there was more to the straddling of The Undertaker than what you saw. No. Goldust got down to The Undertaker's lower extremities and began licking him up his thigh. Steve, yes, he licked The Undertaker's thigh. That's what actually happened before The Undertaker sits up here at the end as Goldust blows the kiss to the crowd. He turns around. Undertaker sits up. Goldust runs off. He runs into the casket, and off to the back he goes as the Taker stalks behind him. So I thought the straddling was enough. When I realized there was more to it, I was like, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you question if Russo was involved. Yeah, there's no doubt about it here. I'm shocked The Undertaker went for this. Why didn't he pull the Giant Gonzalez card for this one?
Yeah, all those ideas went through my mind. I remember Russo taking credit for some of the early Goldust, specifically the early Goldust ideas. And this screamed Vince Russo here. And I, too, thought, when I read this, I thought, I can't believe The Undertaker agreed to this. But man, was he a trooper. The Giant Gonzalez, Goldust licking his thigh. Taker was all about trying to make whatever money he could. He was like, all right, whatever. Still doesn't come off as a guy. He won't do a spin-a-rooney, but he'll let Goldust lick his thigh. So that's The Undertaker.
I guess it's not him doing it. It's happening to him,
I suppose.
So I'm just comparing it to like the spin-a-rooney, whereas that would be him doing it, and that would kind of kill the gimmick. At least with this, he can retaliate and get revenge, so to speak. This stuff just made no sense to me. Like, this seems like it's thrown together. I don't know why these guys are even having a match. And it doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. I don't like the selling of it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's like they created a casket match. They created a casket match for absolutely no reason between Goldust and The Undertaker. And then after they're like, now we got to come up with reasons why we're having a casket match. They kind of booked this completely out of order, which could also be a Russo thing.
That's no lie. It just feels like they're just using this as a prop to extend the feud between Undertaker and Mankind, and they're just using Goldust because they got no one else for him.
Right.
So, I don't know. A lot of these stories leave a lot to be desired. Like, the wheels completely fell off after Diesel left. And those guys, because they had to start fresh with something new because there's what happened prior to Mania, and then the blow off of Mania at the next in your house, like all that's done. So it's like starting fresh with new angles and new stories and new pairings. And man, they came up short big time.
Yeah, and they keep Mankind in play there, obviously, but just for the short term, we got this Goldust match coming up, and well, hey man, I think the match delivers just about as good as the storylines anyway. Not that for what it's worth.
Not very good.
No. Show goes on. It's Justin Hawk Bradshaw taking on Portuguese Man of War Aldo Montoya. Uncle Zebekiah, Dutch Mantel, joins commentary. He's the manager of Bradshaw at this point. Aldo Montoya rocking the old spinning fireworks he used to have during his entrances. They must have had some high hopes for him at one point to give him a firework entrance. Now they just have to burn them off, literally. In fact, we used to purchase that specific type of firework, not as large, but on 4th of July every year we would use those, nail them to the post and light them up, and we called them Montoyas. Just for that very reason there. Hey, where's the Montoya? Nail it up there. All right, here we go. So just a little fun note in my life. So JBL, Blackjack Bradshaw, Acolyte, Drunken APA, take your pick. This was my favorite incarnation of Justin Bradshaw, JBL, whatever you want to call him. I loved it, and it might be my love for Stan Hansen, shining through, but he had the right build. He was huge, and he was a badass, and he had a great look here. Zebekiah joins commentary. People fear JBL, or sorry, Bradshaw, I should say, says Zebekiah on commentary. I also love how Zeb had to pretend like he didn't know Jerry Lawler. They were meeting for the first time, even though they feuded for like fucking, 10 years or something. Bradshaw dominates the match. Aldo Montoya makes a comeback. He nails a missile dropkick, but eats a big boot to the face, and it's lariat time. Boom! And when I saw it, I literally yelled, "Boom, Steve!" because I marked out for it, and my dog jumped up. I woke my dog up. So, anywho,
always love the clothesline.
Lariat gets the win, 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and Bradshaw brands the Man of War after the. I forgot all about him having the branding iron until I saw it here. Brands the Man of War with the JB branding iron.
Yep, I love the clothesline. It's one of my all-time favorite moves, especially when they just wind up and beat the shit out of you with it.
Yeah, and Bradshaw certainly didn't give a flying shit about hurting anyone or winding up and hitting you as hard as he possibly can.
That's what makes it so good. Him and Stan Hansen kind of, they're the same. Like, even probably the Berserker, I'm sure, at times didn't give a shit.
So like, it's just more, think,
that's what's so good about it. That's what's so good about it is those big lariats is just nobody cares. The guys delivering it don't really give a shit the repercussions of what happens, and that's cool with me.
As long as it's a lariat, I got you. Okay.
Yep.
I had mentioned before, I think on the last episode of Monday Warfare, about the WF doing the Kuwait tour, I should say. There's a video here.
Yeah.
And Vince does the voiceover, talks about the former Iraqi aggression in Kuwait and Kuwait overcoming and having their freedom now. Let freedom ring, Steve. We'll have another video on this next week. It morphs into something and just blows my fucking mind. But Vince just trying to get shit over here about Kuwait in the video, and I don't really know what his plan was here. Just felt more like the old charity thing that we saw back in 1993 with Vince having to air his charitable work. Here we're talking about Kuwait. We'll continue on with the show, though, because there's more video from Kuwait. It's not about just bombs in Iraq and freedom. It's about Bulldog and Shawn Michaels and shit like that, because Shawn Michaels randomly at a beach somewhere in Kuwait, very windy, by the way, when he's attacked by the British Bulldog on the beach. Bulldog rocking swimming trunks, by the way, so I'm thinking he was on the beach, too, somewhere. Nobody else was on the beach, I should mention, Steve. Bulldog attacks Shawn Michaels, drags him to the ocean where I presumed that he was going to try to drown him, murder him. I don't really know. Whatever the case may be, Shawn did manage to live through this, but Bulldog kind of beats the crap out of him for supposedly hitting on his wife. This didn't do anything for me then. It doesn't do anything for me 25 years later.
I don't mind this because it's wrestling related. He's beating him up on the beach, whatever. I think it's funny. It looks cool. Them just fighting in the water a little bit. But as far as the story goes, no, it does nothing for me. So this was okay. This is like the only thing that they really do that didn't bother me. Like if you hit on my wife or something, I'm gonna be pissed, and I would want retaliation too. So actual wrestling sense, as far as what they're doing here, this is fine. The rest of it, garbage.
It's main event time on Raw when we see WWF champion Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario in his corner taking on Triple H with valet Amy Peterson in his corner this week because Kliq rules. So it's Shawn versus Hunter here. Triple H gets the better of Shawn momentarily as we go into an early commercial break. Shawn Michaels makes the comeback and one-ups Hunter. Hits on his valet. Proves he's a womanizer, I wrote. ? Huh? Why would you do this, Shawn, in the middle of being accused of all these things? Shawn goes out and hits on Hunter's valet. Shawn then owns Triple H in the ring, clotheslines him to the floor, skins the cat back inside, then drags Hunter in a headlock back into the ring over the top rope, and drops him right on his prominent proboscis. Yeah, that's how you say it. On his big nose, I should say. Shawn works Hunter over, works his nose. He didn't work his arm, didn't work his leg, didn't work his back. No, he worked Hunter's nose. Vince even calls him W.C. Fields. For those who don't get that reference, why don't you Google it? Wikipedia, go back about 100 years. Guy had quite a schnoz. Mr. Perfect comes out. He's watching someone, I'm assuming Shawn Michaels, from the aisleway. Recent issues has Mr. Perfect had with Shawn Michaels. Of course, if you guys remember, we talked about this where Perfect tried to help Diesel out and beat Shawn Michaels, and that plays into something more here moving forward. But outside of the ring, Shawn Michaels charges at Triple H, but eats a hot shot onto the guardrail. Triple H then takes over the match as we go into yet another commercial. Triple H, coming back from commercial, dominates the match. Shawn with some hope spots, but a third commercial break, Steve, during this match is Perfect still watching on in the aisleway. I wrote, wonder why this was given so much time, Steve. Do you wonder why?
No. I know why.
Being sarcastic. Triple H still in control. Shocker. After the third commercial break. Chinlock on Shawn Michaels. Comeback time, though. Shawn counters a pedigree with a catapult and hits the HBK 5 moves of doom. Perfect then wanders closer to ringside as Shawn counters a powerbomb with a Hurricane Rana, or as Vince called it, a Frankensteiner. I don't think he even noticed that, the Steiners are in WCW. Shawn then finally counters a pedigree into a backdrop, and Triple H eats a super kick. Shawn Michaels gets the win. 13 minutes shown without commercials, a 16-minute match. About as good of a match as you could ask for on TV, I'd say.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad match. It was pretty good. Run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. Nothing like overly tremendous, but it was good. Like you said, it was a perfect match for TV. It kind of leaves you wanting more. Maybe not necessarily of Shawn and Hunter, but just more of Shawn Michaels, I guess, since he was the champion, and he was entertaining. All BS aside, he was pretty fun to watch in the ring. So, yeah, it served its purpose and did what it's supposed to do, make a champion look good in a competitive match.
Yeah, very competitive match for TV. Shawn picks up the clean win with the super kick, and Mr. Perfect leaves ringside. Doesn't interfere in the match, but he is watching on, so keep Mr. Perfect in your mind moving forward here in the weeks to come. Jim Ross then interviews the Bulldog, Jim Cornette, and Diana Smith. Bulldog has Jake the Snake Roberts next week, but Shawn Michaels will be on commentary because that's a good idea. Who the fuck booked that? Bulldog is not happy. He says Shawn better not go anywhere near Diana. This may be over before In Your House should Shawn show up next week for commentary. Bulldog says he's not going to get anywhere with near my wife. And Vince on commentary says, oh, yes, he is. So what the fuck was that about, I wrote? What the hell? Vince McMahon basically calling the Bulldog, yeah, he is. He's going to get all over your wife. Yeah, pal.
Yeah, that was, I picked up on that as well. I was like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say, Vince?
Yeah, and he said it like definitively. Like he said it like it was matter-of-factly. Like, oh, yes, he is. He's going to rape me.
Yeah, and he sounded, like exactly. He sounded like, yeah, he's going to get your wife, dude. If he wants her, he can have her. Like, that's kind of how it came across.
Because he's Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. You mentioned the skin the cat. Where was you supposed to remember that for Raw? Where was you? Did you have a comment for that, or?
Oh no, it wasn't a skin the cat. It was the flip back into the ring. We're going to come up on that on the next episode of Raw. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
But I appreciate you remembering that. I really do.
I do remember. I'm not going to forget stuff.
Segment of the night, was it Triple H and Shawn Michaels, Vader in the dumpster, Goldust humping a dead man? I guess you could call it the original Katie Vick angle, sort of. Ahmed Johnson telling off the real trash, not the dumpster, but rather Sonny, or was it
Warrior Man here?
Could be any of those. Take your pick.
Shawn and Hunter by default. Lots of squash matches. I'm not buying like Drosy or Aldo Montoya at this point. I don't think I ever did. Bradshaw looked good. Vader, I thought Vader's match went way too long for Vader. Undertaker stuff makes no sense to me. It's disturbing. I'm still shocked that he allowed that to happen. But business is business, I guess.
Yeah, by default, Triple H and Shawn Michaels get the win here. Nothing else on the show really came anywhere near a good wrestling match. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go with you. I don't know that I cared for pretty much anything else on this show. And Ahmed Skip or Zip or take your pick. That went like 3 minutes. So Triple H and Shawn all day long here. And ratings are in. For May 13th, saw Monday Night Raw do a 3.5 rating and a 5.1 share, while Nitro at 7 p.m. did a 2.3 rating and a 4.4 share. Raw 3.5, Nitro 2.3. Both numbers are considered very strong for their respective slots. So DeMeltz contradicts himself. He claims Nitro's going to 2 hours because they're panicking about their ratings. And then he says, that's very strong for 7 o'clock. So DeMeltz are everyone.
Hey, where's those 18 to 49 demos? I need that breakdown.
Yeah, where's the demo?
So we can get. So
he didn't know about the demos back then. Didn't you hear him explain himself on Twitter?
Oh, he said that demos were mattered since the CBS thing of '78. So if demos been that important for that long, then how come you never reported them on before, buddy? Quit carrying the water for AEW. We'll move on.
The real winner here, Steve, is it Nitro or is it Raw? Would you say this week?
I'm gonna go with Nitro.
Okay.
I'm just not into these stories that they have going on in WWF. I don't like them. I never did care for them. I thought they were ridiculous. Nitro, the angle with Luger at the end was very well done. I thought it was the best thing on either show, to be fair. And there wasn't a lot of heat on that Giant and Sting match going into Slamboree.
Yeah, not at all.
So I think Sting defending his buddy added some to it. So I thought that was a solid booking decision, a solid angle. And to me, it tipped the favor. There's not a lot of anything on either one of these shows to really ride home about.
Right.
But that angle was good enough and memorable enough to tip the balance. Shawn and Hunter was good, but I'm not good.
I got you. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going Raw for one specific thing, Shawn versus Hunter. Now, if you're going to ask me what the best segment overall for the weekend or the Monday night was, yeah, it was Luger going through the table. I'm not going to argue that. But the fact that Shawn and Hunter went a quarter of Raw and had probably one of the better TV matches. Let's just be honest. You didn't get, I understand it was run of the mill, but it was solid. It was good. There was nothing bad about it. You didn't get matches like that back then on TV very much because usually the guys that were given 15 minutes were named Hulk Hogan and guys like that, and they weren't really putting on matches like this. Of course, that'll change next week on Nitro, but for here right now, that 15 minutes or whatever you want to call it, it just overtakes that 1 minute that Luger goes through the table for me. Best thing on either show, Luger going through the table, but that's just way more of Raw than what Luger did on Nitro, so I have to go with Raw. Although, if this makes any sense in the world, I'd rather watch Nitro again. That's how bad the rest of Raw was.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think, too, another big thing about that Triple H match and Hunter or Shawn was there's a clean winner. When you had two names in the ring like that, you didn't really get clean finishes from the WWF. So to get a clean win out of a 16-minute match is pretty damn good for WWF.
We're running long on time here, so I'm going to skip over WCW Slamboree results because they take place on the 19th of May before we get to Nitro here on the 20th. You guys can go on Wikipedia or go watch it on the Peacock. But make sure you go over to patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Me and Steve, yes, we've done Slamboree 96, the watch along. You guys can watch along on the Peacock or internationally. You guys can still use the WWE Network to watch Slamboree 96. I don't know why on earth you'd want to, but our commentary is fun. So you can check us out there. Slamboree 96, the watch along, part of the watch along series there on the all access tier WrestleCopia. That's patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Thank you guys for that. And we'll move on. So Slamboree results. Obviously, we had the Lethal Lottery. Of course, Steiner versus Steiner, Road Warrior versus Road Warrior, foes teaming up, baby faces facing each other, all kinds of silly nonsense going on here. But the gist of this whole thing is the winners of the first and second round advance into an 8-man battle bowl, if you want to call it that, where you can win by either going out of the ring or eliminating your opponents out of the ring or pinning them, of all things here. DDP, yeah, the guy that just got announced for the fucking pay-per-view on Monday, picks up the win here. He wins Battle Bowl, wins the Battle Bowl ring, the coveted Battle Bowl ring, and he earns a shot because remember, the winner was supposed to receive a shot at the Giant at the upcoming Great American Bash pay-per-view. We'll see what happens there with that. Speaking of the Giant, yes, he does also successfully defeat Sting here on Slamboree, so the Giant retains the WCW title as we head into Monday Nitro. Any comments before we move on to Nitro, Steve?
All right, we'll just move on.
So, WCW Monday Nitro, May 20th, 1996, a special 90-minute edition. I did mention last week's episode was the final 60-minute edition. They're in Monroe, Louisiana at the Civic Center. 4,000 fans in attendance, over 3,200 paid. NBA playoffs continue, but this is for the final week of the NBA playoffs, so this is a special 90-minute show. They're kind of building us up to the 2-hour episode, which will debut next week on TNT. Heenan and Bischoff on commentary. No more Steve McMichael. He's gone, and so is Pepe. Bon voyage. We see clips from last night's Slamboree where Mongo introduces Kevin Green to Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. We learn it's going to be a tag team match at the Great American Bash. And to add realism to the whole thing, Eric Bischoff says, it's official. As of 11:15 this morning, the match was signed. I was like, wow, what a detail to throw in there, Eric.
So Kevin Green just showing up without signing the match, huh?
That's right. That's pretty much supposedly how it went down here. And I did like the one line in there. Flair kind of gets that jab in during that back and forth with Mongo. Who you got? Lawrence Taylor? So I thought that was a little funny.
Lawrence Taylor's had his fill of wrestling. Dude main evented WrestleMania. Why would you ever come back from that?
No reason. No reason at all. You know, he started off in WCW, though. He was...
I remember, like, Heyman would always go to his club, and they had that stuff with, Luger?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I get it, but... You main evented Mania. I'm done. 1-0 at WrestleMania. That's my only match.
Shit, man. Pay me. You know, that's how these guys think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we get to the ring, and we just saw this match just a few weeks ago on Monday Nitro, and I said, give me more. Well, I asked for it, Steve. It's the Steiner brothers taking on Fire and Ice, Scott Norton and Ice Train. Ask and ye shall receive. It's a rematch. These guys only got 3 or 4 minutes the last time in the ring, and they just beat the living shit out of each other. It was a fun slobber knocker, folks. As Scott and Ice Train start here this rematch, back and forth, working snug. Scotty with an overhead belly-to-belly on Train. Then it's Rick and Scott Norton's turn in the ring. Norton plows over Rick Steiner, walks through him with clotheslines. No other man can walk into you with a clothesline and you be able to buy it. Like, I would have shit all over this if any other guy had done this, but Scott Norton somehow manages to walk into Rick Steiner with a clothesline, and I bought it. Believe me.
Oh, yeah. There's very few people that can do that.
Rick Steiner comes back on Norton with a released German suplex, and a Steiner line gets 2. Scott Steiner in the ring, I couldn't believe, Dragon suplex, a full Nelson suplex on Scott Norton. You got to give it to Norton for agreeing to take some of these bumps here. He's a big dude. We can joke about him not having a neck in order to break one, but you can seriously break one with this kind of weight coming down on top of you.
That's no lie. I've seen him, man. He can't even turn his head.
Norton goes out to the floor. Scott Steiner climbs to the top rope. I was like, what is he doing here? He actually slips as he tries to leap off and hits an elbow or something on top of Norton out there, double axe handle. Not really sure what it was supposed to be. Norton then smashes Scott Steiner back in the ring with a nasty Samoan drop, all of his weight on top of him. But Scott Steiner manages to make the hot tag to Rick Steiner. Ice Train also tags in. Immediately, they run into each other with a double clothesline. Leads to a 4-way melee on the floor. Norton lands the old Papa Shango reverse shoulder breaker on the outside on Scott Steiner. Moments later, Scott Steiner gets up and nails Norton with a German suplex on the floor. Meanwhile, we learn that both teams have been counted out, as WCW does what they love to do best and pick up that split screen fighting action. 5 minutes and 24 seconds, double count out. I wrote, first match was much better. It was sloppy in the latter half here. Crap finish. They did the finishes out of order. We saw the pinfall last time. This time it's a double count out. I enjoyed the first match much better.
Yeah, I did too. It almost makes you think like they saw the first match and thought like we did. Like, holy shit, this was really good. Let's give him some more.
Yeah.
But let's protect him this time so we can get even more out of it. But like you said, we've already seen the finish. The Steiners already pinned him. So you kind of did it out of order there. But I don't know if you picked up on it or what, but it seemed like Norton got a little wobbly. I wonder if that forearm off the top really connected or did something to him. Because like you said, Scott slipped and he ate it pretty good right in the side of his neck. So I wonder if he got like a stinger or something, because after that, he just didn't seem right. Like that's when they kind of broke down a little bit. He just looked off, and
very well could be.
And I don't know if you've seen at the end, like when he's talking to Patrick about the count out and just being pissed about it. He kind of bent over and was looking down at the ground, and then he looked up and kind of sold it like he was just angry, but he just looked off a little bit because they had an ugly like double shoulder block where he was like charging, and then he kind of just stopped because I don't know if he could commit to it or what the deal was, but Train kind of just ran over Rick, I think it was.
Right. Yeah.
Scott really couldn't do it. So that's really, I wonder if that's what caused it, because up to that point, it was actually pretty decent, but the wheels kind of fell off there. But yeah, careful what you wish for, huh? You get a 3.5 minute match. It was fun as hell. You get 5.5, and it's like, this went a little too long.
Yeah, that's it was unfortunate. I was like, when I saw them coming, I'm like, oh hell yeah.
Me too.
We got that. We get the old WCW magazine commercial where Sting turns into a kid reading the magazine. Do you know who that kid went on to be?
No.
Eric Bischoff's son, Garrett Bischoff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
No clue.
Yeah.
I know now.
Yes, sir. Back to the ring. Oh, my God. Nature Boy Ric Flair with Liz and Woman taking on Eddy Guerrero. Last night at Slamboree, it was Flair and Savage taking on Arn Anderson and Guerrero. This is kind of Guerrero's way of getting a little revenge, but it's also our way of getting a good match on TV here this week. Mm-hmm. Flair teases Randy Savage. He kisses Liz's hand. He's really pissing the Macho Man off, who is not permitted in the building, by the way. Flair takes a weird drop toe hold. I thought it was a mistake when he did it with VK Wall Street last week, but he does it exactly the same way here again this week with Eddie. I'm like, oh, this is just the way Flair takes the drop toe hold bump. Kind of stalls and staggers. I don't know. Anyways, it's just kind of interesting. Eddie controls early on. Ric Flair chops the shit out of Eddie. Eddie finally starts chopping him right back. Drop kick Flair over the top rope to the floor. Rick goes over and grabs his VIP chair. But referee Randy Anderson gets into it with Rick, and Randy Anderson begins shoving the Nature Boy. Eddie does the Ric Flair strut as well during the match and upsets Ric Flair just a little bit more. More chops by Eddy Guerrero. Flair flop. Eddy Guerrero controls 7 minutes of the match at this point, all the way into commercial break. So Flair's getting some shots in, but 7 minutes, mostly Eddy Guerrero, and he's looking good. Coming back from the break, Guerrero's still in control. Top rope sunset flip. Has to pull down the Nature Boy's trunks to pull him over for the 2. Eddie dominates more often than not for the first 10 minutes, even though Brain calls it 50-50. Flair with the inverted atomic drop and finally takes over, but Guerrero fights right back. Continues with hope spots and near falls as Ric Flair works on the offense. Flair misses a punt kick and Eddie locks in a figure 4 of his own on the Nature Boy. Flair gets to the ropes to commence a break. Eddie misses a top rope dive out to the floor and hurts his knee. So basically, Guerrero locks in the figure 4. Flair gets to the ropes and rolls outside to recover as Guerrero goes to the top rope, dives out onto Flair, but Flair sidesteps, and Guerrero blows out his knee. Kayfabe, folks. Flair suplexes Eddie on the outside, then back inside. Guerrero still fighting back, hobbling on the knee, but still with hope spots. So they give Eddie all the work in the world here in this match. Flair flip up into the corner and out to the apron, and Eddie drop kicks him off. I loved it. Back inside, tornado DDT. May have been the first time ever that I can recall anyway here in WCW. 1, 2, near fall with the tornado DDT. Really woke the announcers and the crowd up. Not that they were dead, but they really popped for that tornado DDT there. Eddie walks the ropes into a flying Hurricane Rana and sets Flair up for the frog splash. I thought for sure this was it. I thought Rick was going to get out of the way of this, but no. The frog splash connects, but Eddie hurts his knee further on the way down, and he can't make the cover. Ric Flair sees the opening, and it's, woo, figure 4 time. Eddie tries to block it, and I love that too. Great psychology. Eddie putting his hand on Flair's leg, trying to keep him from locking in that figure 4, but Flair locks it in. Woman again this week, more added leverage. Does Eddie submit? No. He passes out. 1, 2, 3 from the pain, and Ric Flair picks up the win. 19.5 minutes. 1 year ago, Steve, Eddie was in a bingo hall. Now he's wrestling a 20-minute match with Ric Flair on TNT.
Yeah, that was it was really, really good. The tornado DDT popped the shit out of Bobby Heenan. He was like going nuts. He really sold the move. He thought it was just the greatest move he's ever seen. It almost felt like just a really, really excellent match. I don't know. You kind of watch this match and you think, man, Shawn and Hunter wasn't that great.
No,
to be honest,
definitely right. No,
Ric Flair was really given Eddy everything that he needed to establish himself as a player. I'm not saying he should be in the title picture anytime soon. I'm not saying he should be elevated past what he is, but there's something there, and it's like I want to see more of Eddy Guerrero. You're just intrigued with him and what he can do, and maybe get him in there with somebody else, because he's clearly shown that he deserves more than what he's getting. So he needs to be on TV every week and really establish like a character, something that can get him over to the masses. And this is a great start. Unfortunately, we know where it goes, but Eddy's the man, and this was a hell of a match. And I think Ric Flair, I don't know if he went in playing the character, but after 2 or 3 minutes, like he was like, okay, it's time to go. And he put on his best work in a long time too, I feel like.
Yeah, and DeMelt says best match on Nitro in a long time, but I'm going to go one step further here, Steve. I'm going to say this may be Ric Flair's final good match. I mean, really, really good match. I don't mean by with the Shawn Michaels match where the emotions are there. I mean, wrestling-wise, old Ric Flair. It took a young guy that can go to force Ric Flair to keep up. And he did to Ric Flair's level. This might be Ric Flair's last good wrestling match.
It's definitely possible. I know we got a lot of Ric Flair to come, but I think as far as a pure wrestling match, this is probably one of the last for sure.
Yeah.
Really no story that's driving it. This was just a young pup in the ring with Ric Flair, and Ric Flair said it's time to go. And he made Eddy Guerrero look like $1 million. He put him over, even though he lost. He made Eddy look really good. Like, he made Eddy look like a winner in losing.
Just this is definitely one of those instances where Eddy loses and he doesn't look like a loser whatsoever, because everybody knows who Eddy Guerrero is now after that match.
Yep, absolutely. 100%.
I wrote, if they can keep this up in the 2-hour format, just one really good match every week that goes 20 minutes, I'm sold. Unfortunately, the NWO come in, and that's unfortunately they don't need to have a really good match every week.
I think if they would have stuck to this format, they would still be here.
So
the NWO's fine, but they shouldn't dominate 70% of the show.
No, and that's kind of what killed the NWO. It's just too much.
That's when the trains went off the track.
So this is what I didn't like. I didn't care for the fact that Ric Flair just wrestled a 20-minute match where Eddy Guerrero gave him everything he could handle, damn near beat the former however many time world champion is here in 1996. And he goes straight over to the VIP table. I was fine with that last week. He wrestled IRS in a 7-minute snooze fest. This week he goes 20 minutes of action with Eddy Guerrero, walks straight over to the VIP table to have a promo with Mean Gene Okerlund, of course, conducting the interview. Mean Gene has heard the Macho Man is inside the building. Flair heard Savage is in jail for trying to break up a Flair dinner party with the ladies. Flair says Mongo isn't here because he ran scared of Flair and Arn Anderson from Slamboree. He says Kevin Green also made 2 mistakes. One, coming into North Carolina, because he had joined the Panthers, without asking Flair's permission. I kind of like that one. Second, Flair says, you can't cross-train football to wrestling like Flair has cross-trained his girls. My God.
Oh, goodness.
Flair says Green won't even make it to NFL minicamp. Flair closes things by taking his champagne with him, and he's going to go join commentary. Mean Gene the Lush is upset that Ric Flair took the champagne with him. So Ric Flair going to join commentary for the remainder of the night.
Can't wait for the one-liners.
One-liners all night long after this. I wrote some of them down, some of them I didn't. I see a couple of them here in this upcoming match as we go back to the ring. Tag team champions Sting and Luger taking on the Faces of Fear, Ming and the Barbarian. Flair, as I pointed out, joins commentary. So Heenan lights the candles. He's brought the candles with him from the VIP table. Flair references Deborah McMichael and says, Debbie from Dallas? Jeez.
Oh, Lord.
At this point, Eric Bischoff asks Ric Flair, have you ever been in the ring with the likes of an NFL player? Bischoff not realizing, the past history. Ric Flair says he tamed Wahoo McDaniel. Wahoo, of course, played for the Jets amongst several other teams. He retired the big cat Ernie Ladd. None of this is true, but he did wrestle these guys. Ernie Ladd, of course, with the Chargers. And Ernie Ladd actually got drafted by the NFL and the AFL. I don't know if you knew that, Steve. The same year, he chose to go with the Chargers and the AFL. So, the big cat drafted by both the NFL and AFL same year.
Pretty impressive athlete there.
He was at one point, but his knees were shot by the end of the 70s. Ladd, though, Flair, though, goes on and on
Sucks
and on.
to be tall, huh?
Yeah. The only thing I didn't care for here was Flair, made the rest of the night about Flair. So even though he would pivot and kind of go, yes, Sting's the greatest athlete, or Ming's the toughest, king of the Polynesian Islands, or whatever he calls him, it always goes back to Ric Flair, as you would expect. And I forgot Sting and Luger were even champions at this point. They defend the titles so little. It's back and forth in the ring. Lex taking a little bit of heat from Ming. Rick then sings into the commercial break, Debbie does the Nature Boy. I can't believe this I guess it was live. It had to make air. But I can't believe Bischoff didn't kind of have a conversation with Rick during the commercial break after a line like that.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. I can't believe this is still on the Peacock, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we come back from commercial break. Sting taking it to both faces of fear. He tries a bear hug on the Barbarian. Looks like a missed spot here. They kind of collided, and Sting just, goes into a bear hug on the Barbarian. Looks absolutely ridiculous. But you can tell Sting's calling a spot as he's holding Barbarian. And Sting misses a drop kick, and the faces of fear take over. Inverted atomic drop by Ming as Barbarian lays in a big boot. Nice finisher there. If you guys ever watched their couple matches in the WWF right around WrestleMania 7, Barbarian and Haku as a team, that was actually their finisher. They nail it on Sting here. Lex Luger breaks up the count. Barbarian then takes Sting all the way to the top rope with a belly-to-belly superplex, and holy shit, he throws Sting the entire length of the ring. I can't believe Sting even took this move, even in 1996. They literally both stood on the top rope, and Barbarian with a fucking overhead belly-to-belly or whatever, it just throws
launches
Sting.
Him.
Yeah.
Oh my
Unbelievable. God. And if that wasn't
that
enough,
needs to go on YouTube.
It does.
It
it's a hell of a spot.
Or GIF, some on Twitter. It'll be up for sure.
That wasn't enough from the Barbarian. Both faces of fear then go up to opposite corners of the top rope. Stereo diving headbutts. That should be it for the Stinger. Ming makes the cover, but Lex Luger distracts the referee. By the time the referee does make the count, Sting kicks out. Sting then launches himself towards Lex Luger to try to make the tag, but Ming catches him in midair and drags him back. He then claims Luger could have made that tag, but Bischoff honestly covering for Luger here, defending Lex Luger, so it feels like Lex is really coming on as a babyface. At least the announcers are buying it as such. Barbarian goes back up top again, misses the diving headbutt this time. Sting again launches himself at Luger, and this time he makes the tag, hot tag, to Lex Luger. He goes off on both faces of fear, forearm to the Barbarian, makes the cover, but Ming breaks it up. We end up with the four-way melee. Luger posts Ming on the outside while Barbarian tries another top rope superplex on Sting, but Luger trips the Barbarian up on the rope. Barb takes the bump. Sting with some great height off the top rope with a big splash on top of Barbarian, and then Luger, the legal man, rolls inside the ring, steals that pin. 10.5 minutes. Honestly, this was pretty okay considering some of the guys involved here. 1996 standards.
Yeah, I thought it was good. That belly-to-belly really sticks out and kind of hides some of the bad stuff. But I don't think anyone, they weren't in control long enough to get sloppy or bad. I don't think. They had control just enough to get their stuff in. There was a few missed spots, but overall, this was a pretty solid tag team match. I enjoyed it. And if you don't pop over that belly-to-belly, then you're not a wrestling fan. That shit was wild.
Yeah, looking at it on paper, I felt it was going to be slow and plodding. I was really dreading watching the match, but when I saw that it was going 10 minutes, I was really dreading it. No, I thought it was good. Good for TV. We go on. It's Macho Man Randy Savage promo. He's banned from the building. Steve, he's so mad he arrived in ring gear. Randy Savage always ready to get in the ring. Right out there with his cowboy hat. He's pissed off and he wants it Ric Flair, but he's got his wrestling gear on. WCW higher-ups are concerned about the Macho Man, says Mean Gene. They're meeting on his future right now. He might not even be able to wrestle any further with WCW. Randy says, be real careful what they decide to do about the future of the Macho Man. He tries to run in the building at the end of the segment, but he is stopped by police. So Randy Savage still trying to get at Ric Flair, and he wants him even more after their issues last night at Slamboree.
Yeah, I think Macho Man's clothes are so cool, man. He probably just rocks that. This looks like his I'm gonna walk around town gear.
These are my pajamas, huh?
Yeah. So, but no, this is actually I enjoy this. He's so nuts and he's snapped, and I think they're just doing little things to piss him off. So you can't get in. We're conversating about your future in the company. All these things that are out of his control, and Macho Man wants to be in control of himself. Snapped to the point where he can't do it anymore, so somebody has to make decisions for him, and he hates it. So, not a bad story being told here at all.
We go to a vignette as blood continues to run cold, and back to the ring. It's the winner of Battle Bowl, and the Battle Bowl ring. It's Diamond Dallas Page taking on Brad Armstrong, who lost to Dean Malenko in a cruiserweight title match at Slamboree as well. Flair remains on commentary as DDP tries to wrestle Brad. When that doesn't work, he puts the boots to Brad Armstrong. As we go into a commercial break, we come back, and this crowd is DEAD dead. To give you an idea of how bad it was that DDP went over at Battle Bowl, he has no response here from the crowd. Now think about that for a second. He wins 2 matches in Lethal Lottery, wins the Battle Bowl, beats 3 guys with this new finisher. Well, it's not really new anymore, but they're trying to get it over as an unbeatable, you can't kick out of it type of move here. As DDP misses a shoulder charge into the corner, it's time for Armstrong to make his comeback, but the crowd is Brad does the 10 turnbuckle smashes in the corner, and Flair says, I used to do that to Savage back when he could get into the building to wrestle. I thought that was a good line. I laughed at that. It's probably the best Flair line all night as far as wrestling goes. He goes, they're just doing it.
Pretty funny.
Match goes on. Brad comes off the top rope with a crossbody block, gets a 2 count. Back up, but runs right into the diamond cutter. DDP gets the win, 7.5 minutes. Bischoff likes to say context is king on his podcast, Steve. And recently, when I listened to his version of Slamboree 96, he questioned DeMeltz's comments about trashing Brad Armstrong, not as a wrestler, but being put in that position and how it lowered the meaning of the cruiserweight title belt when Brad Armstrong's getting a title shot. Context is king, Bischoff. This right here is why, and I can't believe I'm defending Dave Meltzer, but this here is why Dave said what he said about Brad Armstrong. It's not about his talent. It's about the way he was booked and used.
Yeah, I remember him saying, like, it just devalues things because he's been a jobber, like, ever since he's been on TV. You can go all the way back to 89, 90, 91, whenever he was there. Like, he jobbed. He was a jobber. That's kind of how he's always been portrayed. He's never been established as somebody that's serious. So when you see Brad Armstrong in the ring, it's just like, okay, he's going to make the guy that they want to get over and look good doing it. And he's going to take the job and do the job. And that's what he is. He's an enhancement talent. That's how he's always been booked. That's how he's always been portrayed. It's sad.
Well,
he's a hell of a talent in his own right.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just the way it was. So seeing him on pay-per-view or seeing him in the cruiserweight title match or tournament, it really didn't make any sense. It's just a guaranteed loss for him is how people would look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that is how you would look at it here in 96, and unfortunately, that's just the situation we're in. The only time Brad really had any kind of a real push on the national level and actually got over to any degree was when Bill Watts was in WCW. He was giving Brad a lot of those Eddy Guerrero type spots we saw earlier. Really good matches on TV. He didn't necessarily win them all, but it was the most over and the best push I think Brad had ever been in his WCW runs anyway. Mean Gene enters the ring after DDP pins Armstrong here. Mean Gene wants to talk with DDP about his win at Battle Bowl. Remember, the winner gets a shot at the Giant at the Great American Bash for the WCW title. DDP lists almost everyone in the Lethal Lottery, even though he didn't wrestle most of them. The Steiners, the Road Warriors, I beat them all. Well, not really. But only one man was left standing. That was DDP. He has only one person to thank. I thought he was going to say his benefactor, but I think they've already dropped that, Steve. Instead, DDP thanks himself. He gives himself a self-high five. DDP then calls out WCW champion the Giant. He won the right for the title shot at Great American Bash. And that's when Gene informs Page, I can't believe this shit, that at one point during the Battle Bowl, one of DDP's feet were on the floor, meaning he should have been eliminated, I suppose. So, even though they'll allow Dallas Page the win, even though the Battle Bowl win counts and he gets to keep that ring, he's no longer the number one contender for the Giant at the Great American Bash. Clearly, this wasn't initially the plan. DDP was put in here, shoehorned in here at the last minute, less than a week in, and he gets the win, of all things, at Battle Bowl, and they have to change the rules by pulling him out of the Great American Bash match. So we learned that Lex Luger now gets the title shot. For what reason? I don't know. Remember, DDP pinned the Barbarian last in the Battle Bowl, so why isn't Barbarian getting that title shot? No, it's just Lex Luger, I suppose, I guess from taking that table spot last week. DDP grabs Gene, and Gene wants an officer in here, damn it.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going on with DDP here. The benefactor thing gets created, then dropped. He wasn't in the Battle Bowl, then he's in it, and he wins it. It's supposed to be for the title, but now it's not. There's a lot of changing of angles and storylines and things here, all for DDP.
All for nothing. Because, like, they just completely, I don't think we've ever seen a lethal lottery again. This is the last one. I don't know how you can come back from this because it's basically useless. It's a waste of time if you're just going to modify the rules after the fact. After Royal Rumble 95, like, it's kind of been set in stone that Battle Royals, both feet have to touch the floor. But you, since you booked yourself into a corner that you didn't know how to get out of or whatever the hell you're trying to do here, you got to change that rule and say, well, your foot hit the floor, so you were eliminated. I don't like it. It's stupid. Why even have this pay-per-view? Why do any of this? For what? What's the reason? To have a ring on this dude's finger? I don't know.
So that he can feud with Jim Duggan, who I think steals the ring at some point, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I know that's coming. But it makes absolutely no sense at all. It's not very good, and it feels like a waste of time. And this is one of those things that's kind of a precursor to what's to come. Like, things just get started, stopped, and tossed to the side for really no reason at all. And this was one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, they go out of their way to put DDP in this position, and then immediately after they put him in this position, he's off doing Disney tapings with Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah, it's like, oh, never mind. We didn't mean to do this.
Slamboree never happened.
Yeah.
WCW. So Bret Hart was the fightingest champion in the World Wrestling Federation. Well, the Giant, it must be the fightingest champion here in WCW. He beat Lex Luger. Well, I don't know if he beat him, but he certainly beat him down, Lex Luger, last week on Nitro. This week, the Giant defending the title against Arn Anderson. The Giant out with Jimmy Hart in his corner. Arn Anderson out with Kevin Sullivan in his corner. But Kevin Sullivan's part of the Dungeon of Doom, which includes the Giant and Jimmy Hart. Pre-match, Kevin Sullivan explains to a confused Jimmy Hart that he was there just to make sure Arn Anderson gets a fair shot. After Arn kept his word to Sullivan throughout the other issues like the Brian Pillman situation. Jimmy Hart says, I understand, baby. And nothing works for Arn here as the match gets going, but Arn does eat a giant backdrop. Pun intended. Arn goes out to the floor, but he's tossed back inside. The Giant is slow to get back in over the top rope, and Arn raises the top rope for a low blow, crotches the Giant with the top rope. Arn comes off the middle rope 3 times with a double axe handle, finally drops the Giant down to a knee. He looks for his patented DDT, but the Giant lifts him up in the air and turns it into a chokeslam. Roar! Giant gets the win, 3 minutes, 37 seconds, and Ric Flair's off commentary. He's out of there.
Yeah, he wants no part of that. Yeah, I mean, it just feels like a throwaway. Like, why do you got Arn Anderson in there going through that? I think they just want to get their champion on TV. I don't know any other reason why this match was there.
Yeah, and you couldn't rush the DDP match because you were going to protect him to build him into something, only you don't do that. So none of this makes any sense whatsoever. Giant over Arn Anderson in 3.5 minutes. Reminder, next week, Nitro goes to 2 hours as Bobby Heenan walks off with Ric Flair's VIP leftovers. Bobby, always the comic relief here. He picks up the candle. He's taking the candle with him. I think he puts an apple in his pocket and grabs the bucket of champagne. Bobby Heenan off the Nitro stage. Segment of the night, Steve. Eddy Guerrero and Ric Flair. Sting and Luger in the Faces of Fear. Or Debbie does Flair.
Well, it's definitely not that one. I will say the Sting and the Sting belly to belly was like the coolest thing you'll see on either show for May 20th, 1996. But the match itself between Eddie and Ric Flair was excellent.
Yeah, it was very good.
So fun to watch, and we kind of got like a show of rematches at the beginning of this show because we've seen Eddie and Flair before,
right?
I think on the earlier episodes of Nitro. So seeing it again, even though it's been like 6-7 months since we've seen it the first time, is just as good, if not better, this time because they got 20 minutes. So just a tremendous match, very fun. Heenan and Bischoff stayed on task and really put the match over. They got the guys over. Flair did a great job. Eddie did awesome. It was just really good all around. It was a solid, excellent 20 minutes of wrestling TV.
Yeah, and normally I talk about, it was a good TV match. I like to use that term, a good TV match. That means nothing special, but it was really good compared to what we normally get on TV. This was better than just a good TV match. This was as good as you can ask for as far as a normal free TV match would go. It was definitely high ranks for me, for sure, and my segment of the night all night long.
It felt like a Clash match. Like this would be something that you would have seen.
A Clash main event,
early Clash
maybe.
of the Champion. Yeah. Like this would have been built up as a really good main event, and it would have delivered a solid 20-25 minute match. That's what it felt like. Felt special. I don't know if it's just because we're looking at it retroactively and in a historical sense. It's Eddy Guerrero and Ric Flair, but it just felt different. It just hit different. I don't know why, but it was really good.
So we move over to the WWF side of things here for May 20th. We look at a little bit of WWF news. Reports are that Jim Hellwig, the Ultimate Warrior, is easier to get along with this time, Steve, than he was in the past. Hellwig did arrive 2 hours late for an autograph session the day of the Madison Square Garden show on the 19th. I found that comical that Dave Meltzer would write that Jim Hellwig is easier to get along with this time. We'll find out just how long that lasts.
I'm surprised he didn't put Anabolic Warrior is easier to get along with this time.
Good point.
Warrior Man here.
Yokozuna returned, having lost, by his own accounts, 33 pounds. Of course, we know that's not true. DeMelt says, at Yoko's size, it's hard to really notice. Really, Dave? After the pay-per-view, the In Your House pay-per-view, Yoko is supposed to go back to Duke University weight loss clinic for another 4 weeks. Now, I don't know if Yoko goes back, but we both know he doesn't lose any weight here. In fact, he gains it as he's sending people off to go buy him buckets of fried chicken by his own account.
Yeah, or he had a runner go get him pizzas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's been written and spoken about, and now there's a documentary about him. There's nothing really need to be said. It's just a sad situation. Very sad.
So before we kick off Raw here for May 20th, we're going to talk really quickly about Madison Square Garden the night before, Sunday night, May 19th. The Godwins beat the Body Donnas for the tag team titles, but that's not the big news. No. It was the final night in the company for Razor, Ramon, and Diesel. Ding dong, the cancers are gone as of May 19th in Madison Square Garden. The reason for Razor and Diesel not doing any TV jobs on the way out was different in each case. Razor scheduled to put over Mankind and Bulldog at TV tapings, but when he came to Omaha for the pay-per-view, he had a note from his doctor, Steve, saying he had a groin injury and he couldn't work at all. He wasn't even going to work the pay-per-view with Vader, going to work his way out of everything. He then agreed to do the pay-per-view match with Vader since fewer people would see it and money was at stake. It was pay-per-view money, but he couldn't do the TV taping. So Razor basically found his way out of jobbing on TV on the way out the door. The final appearance of Diesel and Razor in the WWF came in a strange curtain call finale of the Kliq before the first indoor non-pay-per-view house in WWF history to top $300,000 May 19th at the Madison Square Garden. The Garden's second straight sellout. The first time that's happened in 11 years. You go back to 1985. Wow. It has 18,800 fans. And DeMelt says the last time there was even a sellout was WrestleMania 10. Both Diesel and Ramon in their final appearances before starting with WCW mid-June were the recipients of chants of "You Sold Out" and "Please Don't Go" by a decent percentage of the crowd that seemed to know it was their final show. Ramon was booed in his match with Triple H. Look at that, Ramon versus Triple H, wow. And heavily booed with a loud "You Sold Out" chant after he did the job. After the match, he grabbed the house mic, and before he could get more than a few words out, since this wasn't part of the show, panicked WWF officials cut off the power to the microphone. As it was, all Ramon ended up saying was something to the effect of telling the people, "Say goodbye to the bad guy." However, it wasn't over yet after a very strong main event cage match where Shawn Michaels kept his title, defeating Diesel. After the match, the two hugged in the ring. Ramon and fellow Kliq member Triple H then came to ringside, and all four got on all four posts. We've seen the video, the handheld footage, WWE's even shown it, and gave Kliq signs to the fans, some of whom were teary-eyed and saying it was one of the most emotional moments in recent MSG years. Supposedly, the final display wasn't approved by WWE officials, but it got over great with the audience, so little will probably result from it. Well, that's debatable. Ask Triple H. However, there were other wrestlers who were very unhappy at what they considered a kayfabe
Undertaker.
violation. Yeah, amongst others. A kayfabe violation. You know, when Bruce Pritchard talks about this to this day, he gets pretty damn pissed off too. Particularly since Triple H was in the ring hugging Razor Ramon and Diesel, and had just finished a match with Michaels, and Diesel magically arose from the finishing move by being kissed by Shawn Michaels. The other Kliq member, 123 Kid, wasn't at the show, as his future with the company is somewhat in question after he showed up at the Superstars taping on April 30th in no condition to perform. And he won't be back until the earliest in June. Of course, we know he won't be back at all. 123 Kid going to be out the door as well. So, yeah, there it is, the Kliq curtain call situation. More bullshit from the Kliq here. It's only they matter.
Yeah, it's selfish and ridiculous. It's one thing to go out playing politics and being stupid like Ramon and the doctor's note, whatever. That's fine. That impacts you. It doesn't impact necessarily anyone else. I mean, Shawn, Mankind, and Bulldog, they can fill somebody else in there. It's not going to do them any favors, I don't think. But to totally just say F you to everybody in the back, F you to the business, and F you to Vince McMahon, who paid you both quite nicely for a long period of time, made you who you are, and the sole reason you got the job offer that you got from Eric Bischoff.
Right. And
just to give them the F you, like the middle finger on their way out the door, it just tells you what kind of people they are or were. They may have changed. I don't know.
I don't think so.
It's just extremely selfish. I will say, like, I think Hunter probably just went with it because he was there.
Yeah.
And these are his boys. But I don't think he had, like, I don't know. He's too young in his run to sacrifice anything. I don't care how close he is to Hunter. Or Shawn. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, he would participate. The other two don't give a shit. And Shawn surely doesn't care. It's like, what are you going to do? Fire your champion? That's going to be bad. So, like, he has Vince's nuts in a vice grip, so he can do what he wants, he thinks. I don't know. It's just, now it's like, okay, cool, that's a nice moment, whatever. But I still don't care for it. It's a disgrace and not what you're supposed to do. There's unwritten rules, and they broke every single one of them. And it is what it is, I guess, but it's just, I don't know, not my thing.
No, I'll go along with all of that. Yeah, it just Nash never cared about the inner workings, I don't think, of the business. It was just whatever way to make the best money he could make. And then obviously Scott Hall, I feel like he, at one point cared about the business and probably still does and probably always did. But he probably just wasn't happy, wasn't in a good place. And we all know he has other issues or had other issues.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it all played a part into some of the things going on with Scott Hall here, even in 1996. As we start off Monday Night Raw, May 20th, Kliq free. Well, not exactly Kliq free, but well, half of them are out the door anyway. This is also taped back on April 29th. So airing May 20th, taped back on April 29th. We come a long way with from Raw being live nearly every week. Of course, eventually it will be live again every week, but that's thanks to Nitro and things like that. Right now, we're still in Sioux City, Iowa Municipal Auditorium. It's the week before In Your House, Beware of Dog. It's coming up this Sunday and Tuesday. We go to the ring. It's Mark Mero, accompanied by Sable, taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin with Ted DiBiase in his corner. And I don't care what anyone says. I liked Steve Austin's first theme music here, Steve. Now, I do agree that with his character evolving, the music that everybody's come to know and love matches him better. But here, this Stone Cold character, this more just straightforward, I don't give a shit, I kill people character, I thought this music fit this character better.
Yeah, I like it too.
Mat action to begin things. Mark Mero takes over. He tries a somersault plancha. Austin runs off out of the way. Mero then has to flip back into the ring. Now, see, this is what I was talking about. Earlier, we saw Dave Taylor go outside. He fought with Chris Benoit outside. He had to get back in the ring, Steve. So what does he do? He climbs up on the apron. He flips back in the ring. Gets a little heat. Marc Mero here literally has no reason whatsoever to jump to the apron, but he jumps to the apron anyway. Why does he jump to the apron? Just so he can flip back into the ring and show everybody that he can flip back into the ring. It doesn't really bother me that much. It just shows you two different people's thought process. Dave Taylor, everything has to make sense. Marc Mero, I can do flashy things, so I'm just going to do them. So I'm sorry if I built that up like it was going to be something bigger than that, but I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, too, like, did Mero do it because he was trying to do that plunger and give a fan something to pop for, and he wasn't able to, so he's like, I'll just flip back in the ring, give him something, but what's the point when you just get back in the ring?
I think it was, hey, look what I learned.
For the next spot.
Yeah, I think it was, hey, look what I learned how to do this week. Because I don't know that he'd done it prior to this. Back inside, the action continues. Mero runs into a stun gun from Steve Austin on the corner buckle. It was a nasty shot, too. Good stun gun by Austin there on that top buckle. Austin takes over on the offense. Mero tossed to the floor as we go into commercial. Back from break, they're inside the ring. Austin continues to dominate. Mero tries a sleeper for a hope spot, but he winds up getting hit with the jawbreaker. Kind of a Stone Cold Stunner, only it's a jawbreaker, I know, but I was kind of hoping for it here. Marc Mero breaks the chin lock, makes the comeback. DiBiase then trips Mero up from the floor. Austin nails a knee to the back, and Austin goes up top. He's going to launch off onto Marc Mero, but no, it's Savio Vega from the back, and he attacks Steve Austin with the strap. They have a Caribbean strap match coming up at the pay-per-view. Savio Vega nails Austin, interferes in the match, causing the disqualification. Austin picks up the win over Marc Mero by DQ in 10 minutes. Mero is not happy, Steve. He's kind of standing behind Savio. Savio's watching Austin. Savio turns around, begins to explain himself. They immediately cut away. I was a little bummed because I wanted to see Savio explain his way out of that.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been a bad little match there. That would have been pretty entertaining, I think. Savio, Marc Mero.
Yeah, I agree.
At this point,
right?
Not like Los Boricuas and TKO
Marvelous.
Marc Mero. But,
yeah, right.
Yeah, Marvelous. But Savio here and Marc Mero here, yeah, absolutely. That'd been a fun match.
So last week we were treated to a Kuwaiti video. This week, another Kuwait video, which morphs into Ahmed Johnson's music playing. And then finally, it just turns into a straight up Ahmed Johnson Kuwaiti Cup as Vince proclaims Ahmed Johnson a savior of Kuwait. Ahmed Johnson. Wow. Kuwaiti Cup champion Ahmed Johnson as Vince shouts, "Let freedom ring."
Less said about that, the better. We can move on.
We will move on with
Warrior Man here.
Warrior Man. Yesterday was the launching of the Ultimate Warrior's new comic book called Warrior.
Warrior Man here.
Vince McMahon then announces the debut of the word DESTRUCITY. The Ultimate Warrior rocking DESTRUCITY. God, you'd hear Bruce Pritchard talk about DESTRUCITY.
I need one of those autographed comic books. My goodness.
I don't ever want to see one of those comic books. I think I ended up with one of those for free at some point. 20-some years ago.
I don't need a comic book, but I'll take an autograph one. That thing's like $700
from
now.
Oh my God, I think Bruce Pritchard talks about how many they made. It was some insane amount and they didn't sell. I mean, it'd be toilet paper probably somewhere back then.
Jeez.
Back to the ring, it's Savio Vega. We just saw him run out here during the Steve Austin match. Savio Vega taking on the 1-2-3 Kid, also managed by Ted DiBiase. The Kid shows off his abs on the way to the ring, getting into shape here. This is the 1-2-3 Kid. Ted DiBiase carries out the chauffeur cap as he plans on Savio having to wear that cap should Austin beat Savio in the strap match at the pay-per-view this coming Sunday. The rules state that Savio has to become Ted DiBiase's chauffeur for a day. As DiBiase joins commentary for this match, Savio controls early on with a chin lock. DiBiase distracts, and the 1-2-3 Kid takes over, takes Vega's head off with a nasty karate kick. Kid then hits a running drop kick in the corner. Top rope splash gets a 2 count. Kid controls the match, but Vega fires up, kicks out of the corner, and a Uranagi with a 2 count from Savio Vega here on the Kid. The Kid then counters a backdrop with a spin kick to Vega's head, but misses a top rope splash for the second time. Savio then with a nice cradle gets the win, 8.5 minutes. Post-match, Steve Austin attacks Vega Vega fights back. Kid and Austin then double-team Savio to take him down, tie him up with the strap as Ted DiBiase puts the chauffeur hat on Savio Vega to build up heat for the pay-per-view. Notice Mark Mero's not out here making the save for Savio.
Of course not. Man, Savio hit that spin kick in the corner and sent both of them over the top rope. Man, it was awesome. I love the post-match angle, too. It was a great way to build even more heat on this feud. I mean, Savio's a lightning rod and could really get the passion and the fire going. So seeing him get taken down and tied up like that can really helped. I think add a little bit more heat to this one. I don't know if the crowd's into it like they probably should be or what they expected, but I enjoy this feud. It's damn good.
Well, I'll tell you what, they bust their ass in the actual match. That's for sure. The strap match.
It's the best story out of all the matches on the pay-per-view.
Best match on the pay-per-view.
Far.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too, but...
So I mentioned it in the news part of this segment, but last night at Madison Square Garden, the Godwins, we see clips of the Godwins in the locker room. They're actually Hillbilly Jim and Henry are locked out of their own locker room, and then they open it up, and out comes Sonny, who had been in the locker room with Phineas Godwin. I'll let you guys keep your jokes to yourself there. And then we see clips of the tag team title match. Sonny with her body down is defending the titles against the Godwins. Sonny distracts Phineas repeatedly throughout the match. Finally, she climbs up onto the apron, but Phineas, he kisses Sonny. He plants one right on her. Sonny drops down. He still nails the slop drop on Zip, and we have new tag team champions, Henry and Phineas Godwin, the new WWF tag team champions. Then it's back to Raw. Jim Ross interviews Paul Bearer with the golden casket. Bearer says the Undertaker is ready for In Your House. Jim Ross wants to speak with the Undertaker. Bearer obliges. Where do you think he is? In the casket? That's right. Undertaker pops out of the casket, sits up in the casket. He says he's going to seal the fate of Goldust in this casket at In Your House, and then out of nowhere, slam on the Undertaker from behind. It's Mankind who closes the casket on the Undertaker. Boy, talk about making the Undertaker look like an absolute idiot. I love this for all the wrong reasons. It just makes the Undertaker look like a complete ass. And he's sitting up cutting a dead man promo. And Mankind's just like, yeah, I'm just going to fucking close the lid on you, bitch. Mankind then ties straps around the casket, keeping the Undertaker from being able to get out of the coffin here, and then knocks the casket over and begins beating it with a steel rod. I don't know what kind of damage that did to the Undertaker, but I found this all hilarious as Goldust stalks Paul Bearer around ringside. Jim Ross even tries to help the Undertaker out of the casket, but Mankind with the steel pole, Jim Ross backs off. He doesn't get involved. And all it does is dent the casket up quite a bit. I love that he tipped it over. It made me laugh even more. But the visual of him just closing the casket on the Undertaker, like, oh, I know how to solve this problem. It was funny to me.
Yeah, like, why would you put yourself in the casket to where you have no defense? Like, you can't protect yourself in that situation. So it does make Undertaker look like a complete idiot. It's like angle alert just flashing on the screen at that point. No, decent little angle. It's funny. I enjoyed it. I still remember this when it happened live, so clearly something happened that made it memorable for me. So
it's like they want to continue this Undertaker Mankind storyline without you forgetting that there's an Undertaker Mankind storyline, but they need a month off as far as a wrestling match goes. So they've got Goldust kind of wedged in here, but it's Mankind attacking last week with the Mandible Claw and beating on the Undertaker in the casket this week, even though the match is supposed to be the Undertaker and Goldust, who,
Yep, they're trying to figure out a way to get through it. This is not something they usually do, just pass you on to somebody for a pay-per-view match just so you can stall to get to where you want to get to. That didn't happen, so...
No, these guys will continue to go at it basically for the duration of the rest of the year, the Undertaker and Mankind. As we head into main event time here, but before we get to the match, it's Shawn Michaels to ringside for commentary. But wait, no, it's not. Jim Cornette is out with Clarence Mason, the British Bulldog, and his wife Diana. Clarence Mason has drawn up some legal papers, Steve, a restraining order to keep Shawn Michaels 100 yards away from Diana Smith, so he can't be out here for commentary after all, it seems this week. But WWF President Gorilla Monsoon to ringside as Howard Finkel announces that Monsoon's decision is he agrees. The papers are legal. They are binding. there is a restraining order in place for 100 yards between Shawn Michaels and Diana Smith. They are valid. So, Gorilla orders Diana Smith to leave ringside so that Shawn Michaels can come out and commentate. I wrote, I loved it. It just felt like a Gorilla thing to do.
Yep, that's Gorilla.
So instead of waiting for Diana to go all the way to the back, of course, Shawn Michaels' music hits, and he passes her right in the aisleway because that's a good idea. That's what we do with the restraining orders here in the World Wrestling Federation. And then it's match time. And as good as the Flair and Guerrero match was on Nitro, this may be the worst shit I've had to sit through in a very long time as the British Bulldog takes on Jake the Snake Roberts. Shawn Michaels joins commentary. And like Ric Flair did on Nitro, Shawn basically just wants to put himself over here. He's talking about dealing with character assassination. He's a good man, Steve. Shawn Michaels is a good man. They're adding to this Michaels angle here by mentioning that Marty Jannetty, Shawn's old partner, has been talking about Shawn, all the things Shawn used to do in their past as the Rockers. Shawn admits to parting with Marty, but they were young then, Steve, and it was okay to rape girls back in those days. Yes, I said it. Anyways, if you read it, it must be true, says Shawn Michaels, referring to things like The Observer, I suppose, about his character. Again, character assassination. Did I mention there was a match in the ring? You wouldn't know it based on Shawn on commentary, nor would you know it based on actually watching this match in the ring. Jake the Snake sends the Bulldog outside of the ring early, but Bulldog takes over on the bum leg of Jake Roberts. Jake looks absolutely gassed as he finally tries to come back, nails a short clothesline. He signals for the DDT, but Bulldog right back to the leg. It's at this point during commentary that Jerry Lawler announces Shawn Michaels' pose for Playgirl magazine today. Blech. I won't even comment any further on that. This goes on forever. 11 fucking minutes of Bulldog sitting on Jake the Snake's knee before Diana Smith finally comes back out, but we go into a commercial break. And when we come back, Diana throws a cup of water into the face of Shawn Michaels, breaking her own restraining order in the process, by the way, Steve. Shawn says he'd never hit a woman, so he nails Jim Cornette. Bulldog then launches himself on Michaels, blasts Michaels, and boom, random end immediately. We go right into, it just cuts out. That's the end of Raw. She throws water in Michaels' face. Michaels hits Cornette. Bulldog hits Michaels, and we just go straight to black. That's how Raw ends. I wrote, what the fuck just happened?
Wham! Bam! What the fuck just happened?
DeMelt says the finish of Smith versus Roberts match on Raw, it was Jake the Snake winning by a countout. After the Bulldog was on the outside attacking Shawn Michaels, the show went off the air with the match in progress. It didn't make much sense to have Smith lose on TV, even countout, even if he wasn't pinned in his final TV match before the world title shot at In Your House. So I get the logic there, I suppose, but this was all sorts of awful. I don't know what they thought they were doing here to sell the pay-per-view.
To be 100% truthful in this situation, I wasn't even really paying attention to the match. Like, Lawler and Shawn were talking so damn much, like, you just kind of forget the match was even going on. All I remember was, like, Bulldog working the leg for the majority of the match, and there's a short arm clothesline there at some point.
That's about the whole match, yeah. That's the match in a nutshell.
I was just listening to Shawn and Lawler go back and forth. Not like that was much better. It kind of distracted you from the terrible match. So whoever thought that was a good idea was right. I will say at the beginning of the match, there was Shawn said, I would never have anything to do with a married woman.
Right. Yeah.
I guess taking a dude's girlfriend that he's been with forever, that even though they're not married, is okay though. But I digress. It was ridiculous. It was just him trying to put himself over. And what's funny is, like, it almost felt like he really didn't have a comeback for Lawler. Like, Lawler was laying it on really good, and he didn't really have a comeback for a lot of this stuff. It was just like, yeah, I did some of these things. Yeah, I did this. Yeah, I did pay clothes for Playgirl. Yeah, I did have wild days when I was with Marty Jannetty. Yeah, I did all this stuff. Doesn't mean I'm cheating on, taking married women and having an affair with them.
Yeah, I'm not Max Moon. He's just my buddy.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. This whole story is just utter shit. Like, I would have been good if I just turned this shit off at the Undertaker segment. I would have been fine. I didn't miss anything.
So, segment of the night, Steve. Mero versus Austin. Savio versus the Kid. Mankind makes a fool of the Undertaker. Gorilla makes a fool of Diana. Or, hell, Ahmed Johnson, savior of Kuwait.
Definitely not any of that garbage. I'm just going to give it kind of like what you did for last week's episodes. I'm going to give the MVP to Steve Austin and Savio Vega. Just a combination.
Ooh, that's good.
They're both of their matches were solid, and then the angles afterwards, I really liked them. This is the best build to the best match on the show for the pay-per-view, I think, because it's based in wrestling. It's just two young up-and-comers trying to get the upper hand on each other and trying to make each other look good and build each other up. And it's believable. It works. I've always enjoyed this short little mini feud that Austin had before he kind of just gets the big rub in a month. The rest of the stuff I just do not care about. I don't care about Goldust and Undertaker. I don't care about the story between Shawn and Bulldog. It's just shit. And then the Godwins, no thanks. So
yeah, up and down, man. The storylines are awful. The matches are awful. I don't mean these Raw matches. There's a couple of decent matches here, but I mean like the matches they're booking for the pay-per-view just sound awful on paper. Shawn and Bulldog, I don't remember it delivering here in this match anyway.
I don't remember at all, really, to be fair.
But yeah, the only thing I really have enjoyed is the Austin Savio stuff. Their matches have been fantastic every time they go out there and have a match. And this strap match is phenomenal. The only thing that I could have done without was the nonsensical chauffeur hat garbage. It's like it adds nothing to this. There's no point in it. I get DiBiase's rich and Savio's foreign, so to speak. I mean, quote unquote foreign. He's from Puerto Rico, but I mean, I get where they're going and their storyline here, but it didn't need to be there.
When did they add the next part to it? Is that
next Monday?
Or?
Next Monday.
Oh, they get you to buy the pay-per-view. They have an opportunity to sell it. Okay. All right. Cool.
So, yeah, well, obviously we'll talk about that next week. But for this week, I'm going to agree with you. I hate to cheat twice in the same show. I'm gonna do my best never to cheat again. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best never to cheat again. I'm gonna try to pick a segment.
Some of these shows are pretty rough, and it's gonna be almost impossible to pick something good.
Yeah, so segment of the night for me.
Let's be real.
If I had to go match wise, I feel like Savio and Kid could have been so much better than it was.
Kid, I wonder how bad Kid off was. How bad off he was going into this match. Because he's been dealing with concussions, right?
Yeah, and he's also been dealing with other things like, illegal substances and things like that as well. Mankind made me laugh, I'll give him that much, but match-wise, if I had to pick a match, I'd go Mero and Austin probably, but at the same time, I don't want to pick a match. I'd rather just pick the stuff with Austin and Savio, all good stuff there. Looking forward to their match and watching that Caribbean strap match as part of that In Your House Beware of Dog pay-per-view. But the ratings they be in. WCW Nitro at 7 p.m. worked 90-minute show. It's 7 to 8:30 this week. Did a 2.3 rating and a 4.5 share. While Raw, unopposed at 9, did a 3.1 rating and a 4.7 share. So Raw 3.1, Nitro 2.3. We won't see a lot of these Raw wins very soon here, but for right now, WWF has been owning WCW, especially since they've been on at 7 p.m. here.
So when you're unopposed and you have the audience already built in, you're going to have good numbers. That's not unexpected.
Real winner here for you, Steve. Is it Raw or Nitro, or do I even need to bother to ask?
You don't need to ask, but I'll just give you what I put down here. I'm just going to go with Nitro. Kind of like last week, I thought Luger going through the table was the best thing I've seen. As far as something that's memorable, Flair and Eddy was the best thing out of both shows this time. I didn't mind his commentary. I thought he did just enough of putting certain guys over to not make it overbearing. DDP coming out of nowhere made no sense. It's stupid. It doesn't matter because they don't care about it, so it's whatever. I thought that Steiner's wasn't as good as the second time around compared to the first, but it was decent. The tag title match I thought was actually, like you said on paper, could be dangerous, but it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But I will say I'm going to give Raw some credit. like what they're doing to build to these matches isn't bad per se. I just don't like how they're getting there. Like the matches themselves should be okay, I think, but just the way they're getting to these matches is just driving me nuts, and I can't stand it, and it's killing these shows for me to the point to where Nitro is just going to win by default until this shit's over between Shawn and Davey Boy. I don't like it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I wasn't then, and I'm not now, and not for any like moral reason. It just doesn't intrigue me as a wrestling fan.
Yeah, it's not wrestling. Like I get the Elizabeth Ric Flair stuff from like 92 WWF. It's his wife at that point, and Flair's trying to get with her. So you're defending your honor of your wife. I get that. Even now, like I understand why Flair is using Liz against Macho. It makes sense, but this just seems like a counteraction to that. We're going to bring in a man's wife and add her to the mix and make an angle out of it. And it's just making you, why would you want your champion? Like now we live in a world where if you're accused of something, you're pretty much guilty of it. Whether it's true or not, that's how it feels. So why would you accuse your world champion of being a womanizer and going through all this trouble to expose him as being this terrible human being outside of the ring? And then they never really do anything to dispute it. What do? They just let him talk and say, I don't do this stuff. Like, Vince got accused of pushing steroids, so what did they do? They gave us a 12-minute video about all the charity work that he does and the medals he wins. But they're leaving their champion out to dry, and it makes absolutely no sense. It's terrible booking. It's just horrible. I do not like it. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. It's even worse now.
It's pretty pathetic when you have somebody the quality of the Bulldog. I mean, that's the story writes itself. He's the British Bulldog. Give him a title shot. There you go. End of the story. I don't know why it needs all this extra play here. It's definitely doesn't work for me either. And the real winner absolutely is Monday Nitro. Not only was that tag match with Sting and Luger and Ming and Barbarian pretty okay compared to what I was expecting, but that Eddy and Flair match just stole the show probably for all four of these shows we covered here today. And speaking of covering four shows, Steve, we're changing format here on Monday Warfare going forward. after this episode of Monday Warfare, we're changing formats because Nitro goes to 2 hours next week, May 27th, 1996, and things will never, ever be the same again, to quote somebody somewhere. Hope I spelled it right. Anyways, starting next week here on Monday Warfare, the Battles Within, we're going to be doing 1 week of Nitro and 1 week of Raw every week here on Monday Warfare to give all of the storylines, the matches, the angles, the news, and everything in between the proper time here on the show. So we're going to be covering 1 week at a time, Raw versus Nitro. The real battles begin now as WCW goes to 2 hours, the NWO right around the corner. I'm hearing rumors here that maybe Scott Hall might be showing up here pretty soon in WCW as well. So looking forward to the new format, and I can't wait to see what WCW does on a weekly basis here to counteract Raw, not just to counteract Raw, but what they do with that much time on their TV program. So it's going to be interesting to see what changes and what we get to see here on the upcoming 2 hour format here on Nitro. As we slow down our format on Monday Warfare, Nitro picking up an extra hour.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it gives us more time to discuss things other than like what's on TV. And I think we need to start. I don't know if one of us can do this or what, but I think not right now, but I think we should start making a list of where things fall apart. Like we can start seeing the kinks in the armor and say, okay, they messed up here, they messed up there. I think that'd be something cool that we can add to it, but it's a lot of work, and we don't just want to throw shit together unprepared and just say, yeah, I remember that. That's cool. And have one of us remind each other what happened. No, we really take the time and effort to watch these shows and get as much information as possible. So it's our opinions, but it's based on fact and what we see. And hopefully, from the sounds of it, you guys like it. So stick with us. We got some more coming.
Lots more coming as we're only in May of 1996. Long way to go here in the Battles Within, so to speak. But for this week, Ray Russell and Steve Eckstad had a blast here covering the final 2 episodes of Nitro and 2 episodes of Raw as the 60-minute format Nitro goes to 2 hours and Raw it'll stay 60 minutes at least until 1997. So we've got that to look forward to anyway.
February, right?
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. Sounds about right.
I think the I Lost My Smile is actually the first. No, that's Thursday, Raw Thursday. Never mind.
Well, luckily
it's February, though.
It's a ways off, thank God.
Yeah, thank God for that.
So I want to thank you guys. I look forward. Things are really heating up, and I'm not just saying that for our show. I mean, literally, they're really heating up here, especially with WCW. You know what's coming. Hall, Nash, the NWO, the Cruiserweights, the Luchadors, all kinds of good stuff coming up here in WCW. And WWF, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I remember the pay-per-views. I just don't remember how we get to those pay-per-views sometimes. So it's going to be fun to go back through time and check all this out. Steve, thanks again.
Oh, no problem, man. It's been fun.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week with one episode of Nitro, one episode of Raw here on Monday Warfare, The Battles Within.